It's your call.
So in 20 seconds, or we'll, okay, I see. Meeting is now live. Streaming on YouTube. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We have 4 board members. Hello, everybody. Our first item is to approve the agenda. How does that look to everyone? Anything needs to be changed?
Looks good to me.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as is. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And next we're going to approve the minutes from the last meeting. If you pull those up.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sure it's a typo, but the last well, it came out 2 pages for me, but the meeting adjourned at 2:37 p.m.
And I had to look back. I said, what time did we start that meeting? But
well, hey, we've had some at 2:37 a.m. but so I wanted to point that out. That's all I saw.
So Stephanie, do you know what time? Was it 7:37 or is that wishful thinking? Was it 8:37?
I
It was
think
8:37.
Yeah, at least 8:37.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because one night we went to about
I will correct
9:30. Yeah, I think it was the time before that we went to about 9:30.
okay, so if we just get the new time in, and since we're going to make some changes, there's just a small typo on number 6. Excuse me, number 6, board report. Next scheduled meeting is just on instead of a. Just the typo to put on instead of a. And that's all I saw. Any other changes?
I move to approve
Okay.
with the correction.
All right. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's done. All right, now for our public comment section, Ms. Skinner, are there 5? How many comments were sent in by email?
I have 5 this time.
Okay, you just do like you did last time, just, state their name and I'll do the timer to go over 2 minutes for each one, but.
Okay. A couple did not put names on this again.
So they're anonymous public comments?
Well, the one just said a concerned parent. I can pull up her email and get her name.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
Name. Okay. I have, all but one.
Okay.
Just put a concerned parent. Okay, ready?
Ready?
I am writing to you on behalf of my children who are greatly impacted by the rezoning plans for Carolina Park Elementary School. First, we moved to the Copahy Landing neighborhood because we would be zoned specifically for CPE. My child, who was entering the 2019-2020 school year as a first grader, had a difficult time emotionally because she was switching schools from JPE to CPE. She does not do well with change. We were so blessed that she was assigned a teacher who was sweet, compassionate, and patient with her while she adjusted. To have to explain to my child that she will have to change schools again is devastating. My middle child will be entering kindergarten at CPE for 2020-2021. I then will have to switch schools again to Laurel Hill and once again to Charles Pinckney. My question is, has these children's mental health been considered with this change? Not to mention, I will have to drive past CPE to get to the other schools. This does not make much sense. These kids are being looked at as a number, not a human being with friendships and emotional ties to Carolina Park Elementary School. That was the first one. Okay, this one is from Terry Skinder. As a father and homeowner in the Lieben Park neighborhood, I find it absurd that any neighborhood involved in rezoning for schools should need to be bused past the school in order for students to go to another. Resources being of utmost importance these days, it seems that decisions are being made of a political nature and not for the benefit of the students nor schools. As no one is able to be present during this deciding board's actions on 6/17/2020, I would like to point out my very sincere thoughts prior to decision. I also believe that when measuring distances from home to school, many Carolina Park homes are closer to Laurel Hill Elementary than our neighborhood homes are to Carolina Park Elementary. And since they need not pass a school to go to school, I recommend a redrawing of the rezoning to be of the utmost efficiency moving forward.
All right, next.
This next one is from Tamaray Tabaka. I am writing to express my deep concern and dissatisfaction with the rezoning options of Carolina Park Elementary as they currently stand. I am a resident of Copahy Landing neighborhood off Lebanon Road. We will be impacted under both options. I am adamantly against this rezoning for multiple reasons as stated below. 1, we have to go past Carolina Park Elementary to get to the new elementary schools in Park West. Right now, we simply cross 17 North and go down Darrell Creek and get to the school in about 5 minutes. To drive past Carolina Park Elementary, go through 3 traffic lights, a traffic circle, and the traffic on Park West Boulevard deeply affects the commute time and adds significantly to our burden getting kids to school on time, with school starting at 7:25 a.m. The light at Carolina Park Boulevard, if caught at the wrong time, is very long, and I know this will result in tardies and other issues. We should not have to travel so far when Carolina Park Elementary is so close. 2, we are deeply bothered by the rezoning taking place right now, while we are still so uncertain with the COVID-19 situation. We do not know what next year looks like with numbers and how many kids will be in schools, etc. This seems insensitive and premature. It adds significant stress to an already stressful year for parents and children. Have all options, to include adding trailers, been addressed? I did not see any creative solutions, only a sharp line to rezone. 3, we are part of Coyote Nation. Many of us, my family included, became a part of Coyote Nation from opening day. My son entered as a kindergartner. Principal Antonelli told his grade level that they would be the first class to make it all the way through the school. That was going to be a badge of pride for him and us. We have poured into the school in our time, talents, finances, and more to build up this excellent rated school that CCSD takes great pride in. The families are a huge part of this success. We cannot fathom this being taken from us, as if it meant nothing. We mimic the pack pride creed at home, and it helped get us through the homeschooling when keeping our kids focused on doing their best. This sweat equity into the school has to mean something. It is not the community's fault that the school was built too small and did not account for obvious growth. We didn't even make—
Stephanie, I'm going to stop you. That's almost 2.5 minutes. Is that about to wrap up, or is there a good bit left?
There are 2 more points, but this letter was a form letter and repeated again in a few minutes.
Why don't you finish this letter, and then so we have the whole message, and then if the next one is identical, just note that, and then you can just
Okay. So point 4, lack of diversity will become a big issue with the way the lines were drawn. The side of the road with greater diversity, especially past Charleston National Neighborhood, and African-American population is being cut out of Carolina Park Elementary. The additional travel and burden will be disproportionately applied. The loss of that diversity, which is so important, especially given the current social and political climate, is a huge loss. It seems Carolina Park Elementary will be a nearly all Caucasian upper class school, even more so than now. This does not enrich our children. 5, proposal to end the rezoning after Charleston National Neighborhood. Charleston National is a large neighborhood and could likely cover most of the needed head count if the zoning was stopped there. Moving past Charleston National, to reiterate the above point, are smaller neighborhoods with less children impacted. But again, those impacted would be many minority families and also neighborhoods that are located across or past Carolina Park Elementary, making it so they have to pass one school to get to another. Please take a look at this again and provide more options. However, if this can be delayed or trailers can be added or anything to reevaluate the current options, that would be preferred. So that was submitted by Tamaray Tabaka and her husband, David Tabaka. Then this will be our final one from Robin Cobb. I just learned that the board is considering rezoning the elementary students that live in Copahy Landing to a school that is farther away. It makes no sense for us to pass by Carolina Park Elementary to get to the one in Park West. This is not in the best interest of the students.
All right, is that it for public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you for reading that, reading those. And we have many more comments that came in with the survey that we'll be getting that soon. So our next item is the Carolina Park Elementary rezoning. Just to recap for you all and for anyone watching, we began this work.
Sarah,
Yes.
Sarah.
Volume?
Yeah.
Volume.
There you go. There you go.
I'm going to talk.
Yeah, because you really need to be heard and we can't hear you.
So just to recap, where we are on rezoning, we did start this in January. This is a smaller rezoning project than the last two, which was obviously the high school one was huge, and the multi-middle affected many schools at many different levels. But still, we wanted to give enough time, at least 6 months, from beginning to end, and a year notice to families. So we started in January with the rezoning, doing all of our research, gathering all our numbers, and then the virus hit, schools closed, and we did make the decision because the overcrowding is so extreme at Carolina Park Elementary that we decided to go ahead and get the work done in the most transparent way with the survey and the Zoom meetings, and tonight with the YouTube live stream. So, and we hope to get this decision tonight or this summer so that families will have the option for transfer window, which is open through July, and of course school choice that comes up next year. But we always over here in D2 try to give a year notice just to give family time to plan. And so I think I really appreciate what CCSD and Mr. Antonelli in particular have done to also help alleviate all the overcrowding even for next school year by moving the CD program over to Laurel Hill temporarily. And I think Mr. Antonelli is going to make things work. And everyone, of course, will be trying to make things work for how we're going to open anyway with the virus. But so the first item we have is the review and discussion of the survey results. That was open for, was it a week and a half? And I think how many comments or how many respondents did we get, Stephanie?
We had a total of 141 responses.
Wow.
And does anyone have the sort of those pie charts and survey info to share on the screen?
I don't have it in front of me. I didn't copy it, but I remember it.
Might be able to share.
Student here.
It's not letting me do.
While she's looking for that, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for, of course, we read all the comments, but thank you for kind of consolidating, where the comments, which neighborhoods they came from, and, how many people like this option or have a third option. We had a lot of good information. And board members, while she's looking for that, does anyone have any comments or want to discuss anything about those survey results? Was there any surprises, any new information maybe you didn't think about?
I feel like, sorry, hold on. Sorry. I feel like just because I know we've talked about it and maybe there's some eyes on our meeting tonight that haven't been privy to some information that we've said previously, but maybe we can just quickly go over why we can't do trailers or why we can't just leave things as they are, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's maybe something Jeff could address, just because, I mean, it was my own question not long ago too.
Yeah, and I had that kind of right there at A, or A, between A and B for this agenda is maybe, we have talked about trailers, we have talked about expanding the school timelines and all that, but I think, Jeff, if you don't mind, it would be helpful to go over that again, just because at the last board meeting, board members, I felt the reluctance from all of you and heard your comments, preferring to expand, preferring to maybe not rezone so many students at once. And then, of course, survey, we heard the same kind, some of the similar messages. But Jeff, can you speak to, trailers? Can you even put trailers? Okay, something's being pulled up. Can trailers go there? How much do they cost? What is any kind of timeline? What are the pitfalls for even that plan? And then also, of course, expansion. What is a possible timeline for getting that school expanded?
So let me address the trailer issue first. There is space to put trailers at Carolina Park. There are a number of issues with that from a location perspective. The ideal location and the only location that is within a very close proximity of the school building itself is the location that we would build the additional wing. So if trailers are put where the wing will go, the trailers have to be removed when that wing is constructed, if it's constructed, and that can't be done in a summertime. So that essentially eliminates the wing location, the future wing location as a trail location. That essentially puts them on the ball field to the far right of the school. So not only do you have a significant distance to cover to get back to the main school building, there's obviously a loss of that field for any organization that's using it. The cost of trailers, lock, stock, and barrel, which includes design, construction, utilities, ramps, awning, it is in the magnitude of $350,000 a piece. So, and that includes 2 classrooms.
Oh my gosh.
So the expectation is we probably want to put 2 trailers there. So that's a $700,000 cost. The budget for capital is approved right now for this year. So if trailers would be done, that means $700,000 comes from some other place, cut from some other budget, cut from some other school somewhere. So that's a decision that would have to be made as well, related to the trailer project. The design would have to begin by December, and the trailers would be installed by the summertime. From a permanent building perspective, the wing estimated cost is $10 million. We're projecting, or we're planning on putting it in the master plan that is going to the board on Monday. And then in July, our expectation is that we would recommend as a staff that it would be on the list as a construction project for the sales tax extension program. That program begins officially in 2023. And so what would have to happen if this project was on the list and it was decided by the county board to do, to get it done faster than that, we would essentially borrow money against the sales tax program, and we would have to begin it right away after the referendum passes. If that all fell into place, the earliest that school could be, that extension could be built is August of 2022. August of 2022, so 1 year beyond the proposed zoning proposal. That is in a perfect situation because there are significant challenges in other locations of the district for rapidly executed projects that are going to be would compete against this one in that situation. So that's a trailer summary and a building summary. Overarching, the biggest concern that staff has, and that would be raised to another level, is the effective use of the taxpayers' dollars. Our effective use of the taxpayers' dollars goes well beyond Mount Pleasant. It goes across the entire district. And when there are hundreds of empty seats in a school 2 miles away from this one, anybody will have a hard time telling Joe taxpayer or Josephine taxpayer that this is the best use of funds. So that's the challenge we face overall, the potential that would exist for trailers and the potential that would exist for a future annex or wing being built on the school.
I have a question, Jeff. In a not so perfect world, when would you say the extension would be done? If things kind of went the normal route and we waited for the sales tax part.
So again, I said that the fastest it could be done is August of 2022.
Right.
I compared to other projects in this building program, it's going to be, I think it will compete toward the middle of the pack, but a lot can change in the next 2 years with everything that's going on in the world. Will COVID affect who comes back to school, where they go back to school? Will we have an influx of private school students back into public schools because of finances? There are a lot of unknowns to say, hey, what's realistic, because there are so many things that can change between now, even and when the sales tax would presumably be passed. So again, optimistically, beginning of the sales tax program, realistically, it might be the middle. But if the rezoning is done and growth increases faster than we're projecting into Carolina Park, that could move it up faster. That could happen anywhere in the district. It could happen on Johns Island for their schools. It could happen in the north part of North Charleston, where growth is already happening too. So I hate to not be able to give you an exact answer.
Okay.
But I think a safe bet is the middle of the building program, like 2025.
Okay.
May I ask something on that, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say August of 2022 would be the start date or the finish date?
In a perfect world, that would be the finish date of the project. If everything worked in the best interest here, the referendum would pass in November. We would begin design in the January timeframe, and we would try to do a design construct together, award a single contract with an A&E and a general contractor. And because the building is already designed, essentially, the footprint of Carolina Park is similar to another local elementary school. The design should be very limited. We still have to go through the wickets of getting it through the state OSF, the Office of School Facilities, but we're looking at essentially a year and a half. So we begin that in January of 2021, and in a year and a half, the opening of the school year 2022, 2023 in August, we would be able to have that project ready to go.
Okay. Jeff, did I understand you to say one trailer is $350,000?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Wow, that's a big jump from when I have experienced trailers before.
So
that's tremendous.
Well, yeah, it is. It's been increasing since I got here, but different than a lot of people think with trailers, we face pretty stiff restrictions with the Office of School Facilities, and rightfully so. That trailer needs to be hurricane resistant. So you're paying for upgrades and everything within that facility like it was a permanent building. And then you've got to run utilities to that structure, both power, water, and sewage, because those trailers would have a bathroom so that kids wouldn't have to go back to the main building to go to the bathroom just to change, to go over to the gym or go over to the cafeteria, obviously. But the trailer numbers are pretty valid. We've had to put them in a number of locations. And I will say that's the cost for new, because it's very rare that we have an existing trailer that we can move, because what happens is as these trailers are being used, their hurricane regulations change. And so what happens is if we do end up having a trailer that we can move, it usually has to be upgraded to the current codes, and it's just as much to buy a new one than to take everything apart and rebuild the thing. And we really are only, we don't, the trailer service life is usually around 10 years. So it's it's a lot harder than you would think to do up a trailer.
Okay, and so at the moment, there are not any, we can't find even one used trailer that wouldn't cost us anywhere near this. It used to be you just, you took off the skirting and that foundation, quote unquote, and you just moved the whole thing. But of course, that's been years ago that I've, been a part of that. I don't know if it was Wando was the last one or where it was, but so that's just an impossibility right now.
Yes, ma'am. We don't have all of the excess trailers are accounted for right now.
Okay.
I have not seen the projection for next year yet, but we have really relocated and relocated the trailers that were good, and we've disposed of the trailers that were costing the district money that were not it wasn't financially feasible to upgrade them away. And so that's where we stand with that. And to your point, you're absolutely right. Back when the Wando trailers were installed, nobody even looked at trailers. And things have changed. Things have changed significantly, even in the 6 years that I've been here, as far as the regulatory requirements and the oversight and making sure that we provide facilities that are safe. And to those that say, well, what about the Wando trailers? We've upgraded the Wando trailers since they were installed. So over the years, they have received additional funding to bring them up to speed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's really all great information. I jotted down a few questions. What happens if the referendum doesn't pass? I'm just thinking worst case scenario for any building project. What's plan B? How does C50 get the money?
So if the referendum isn't passed, we have another opportunity to seek passing it in 2022. So we're trying to take 2 bites at the apple in hopes that we can get it through the first time. But that's the first plan B. Plan B is to take it back to the taxpayers in 2022. Now, what that does is it delays any project that we wanted to get out the door fast because we don't have the money and can't start. If the referendum is never passed again, we are faced with borrowing money to put trailers in. We would not be able to get $10 million for a new wing for a building without the sales tax referendum. We can potentially accommodate trailers like we do now with the annual, what we call fixed cost of ownership. It's off of the 8% operating budget that you see on your home bill, on your bills at home. It also comes from things like cars and boats and whatnot. But we use that money to do small projects, and small projects would include trailer additions.
Okay. If the wing is added, or should I say, when the wing is added at Carolina Park, does that put capacity at 1,200, or what is the capacity, the new capacity?
Yeah, the talking point on it is 1,200. It may vary a little bit above or below, but it does add a nominal 300 student classroom wing to the building. What we've seen is Carolina Park's been able to hold more, so the true capacity might be a little higher than that, but 1,200 is the rule of thumb.
Okay, and for this November, for that referendum, with y'all are getting to the county board and they're going to finalize that list. For D2, which I will point out is the largest constituent district, if you look at how many students we serve, and we are one of the fastest growing areas in the nation. I have to put that in before I ask this question. Are there any other building projects on the list for D2 besides Carolina Park?
So the master plan that was presented to the Audit and Finance Committee, so I'm willing to share it since we did show it to the committee. We're taking it to the board on Monday. In the master plan, and the master plan is I don't want to call it a wish list, but it's a list of needs without regard for resources. And so if a project is needed, it will go into the master plan. And once we finish the master plan, then the top list of projects will go to the board in July for the sales tax referendum. So the first step is obviously the master plan. And in that master plan, as it stands right now, includes a recapitalization, a rebuild of J.B. Edwards Elementary School, of Bell Hall Elementary School, addition at Cario to replace the trailers that are there now, and the Carolina Park expansion. So those are the 4 District 2 projects that would be in the that are in the draft master plan and would be considered as possibilities for the sales tax referendum.
And for, just to make sure I have it right, for James B. Edwards and Bell Hall, which are similar, if not identical buildings, did you say a complete rebuild or just upgrade?
So in the master plan is a complete rebuild for both of them.
Right.
Again, in an ideal world, we build a new school.
Right.
Now, there's obviously a number of challenges with that. We believe that we've arranged for space at J.B. Edwards to build there while the school is still operating. Bell Hall is a lot more problematic. There's no space over there, obviously.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Jeff on that information as far as trailers and expansion timeline? Anybody?
Let's see. No, I'm good right now.
Thank you, Jeff, for going over that. We've heard some of that before, and just it can't hurt just to keep asking.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now Stephanie, Ms. Skinner, I see you have the survey results up on the screen.
Sarah, can I ask a question? It's actually what Kristen asked. It was like part 2 of her question. And I don't know if it's something that you want to address or maybe Jeff wants to address, but, and it is part and parcel to the survey results, but the idea that we're doing this rezoning, we started it before COVID started. And I know that there is a feeling that this is an insensitive rezoning, and none of us disagree with that, but we are unfortunately in a time crunch and we have to find space at Carolina Park. So Jeff, is there anything you can just kind of maybe add to the fact that, yes, none of us know what the numbers are going to be in the fall, but regardless, CPE is at its max. Yeah,
it is at its max, and I can guarantee that Principal Antonelli is doing whatever he possibly can, and he is extremely analytical. He's extremely detailed. He wants to support as many kids as possible because of a lot of the reasons that were mentioned in the public comments. There's no argument about the culture that he's built and the performance that he's had. We've obviously we don't have a bad school in Mount Pleasant, so it's not to take away from any of the other schools, but I can tell you that he has done some detailed analysis of where kids could go in that school, minimizing impact on the kids that are there and putting as many kids as he possibly can in the school. So I'm very comfortable and confident in his work that we've taken a look at as well.
Did he have any solutions that we haven't thought about?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Well, I will say, as I would be as a principal, is, build me a new wing. That's what I need. He'll adjust to any accommodation made, but that's the long-term solution if the growth continues in Mount Pleasant, in North Mount Pleasant.
What other comments did he have? Because we've asked for this a couple of times, so I'd like to know if he had some more comments.
I did solicit comments from the 3 principals at some point if you want to go there, but I don't want to jump on what Jeff has said.
No, I want to know what I was going to defer. I was going to defer to Carolyn, but we also don't want to pit principals against each other about what kids they want and how many every principal will take as many kids as they can get. If they're good, and all 3 of the schools we're talking about have 1% principals. 1% mean they're in the top 1%. And they'll take it. If you said, what do you want? They'll say, I'll take all the kids you can give me. Obviously Michael is in a little bit more of a position because I can't deliver a facility result for him in the near future. So Carol, I don't know if there was anything specific you wanted to add.
You know, I did make sure that the principals knew that there was some question about how aggressive to be on the rezoning in terms of numbers of kids moving, as well as the timing of the rezoning. And I will reiterate that there was not consensus, in part because of what Mr. Barohi said, which is that all the principals are very proud of their schools and believe that would welcome more students coming in. Particularly Laurel Hill, I think folks may know, has a good amount of space right now with over 10 empty classrooms, so that there's an opportunity there, particularly in this time period, to potentially accommodate more students. And I think there's some question as looking at the zones and how much growth there has been, whether we might be rezoning very quickly, given the zone 4, which is close to the Laurel Park and Picnic complex, is more industrial, whereas zone 3 is growing pretty rapidly. So that was one principal's perspective, is should we be more aggressive? I did hear a couple of principals raise the question about perhaps waiting until August or September to make this decision, in part because we're not sure what the actual enrollment was going to be this year coming out of COVID. One principal wanted to say that she has had 3 new enrollees from private schools, given the economic climate to her school community. So things are shifting in real time. And given the community knows that the rezoning is going to happen, we've already given forewarning a year out. So there's some question about whether delaying the decision to August or September when we know the actual enrollment, whether that would be a wise decision or not. I think that one of the challenges about rezoning, because Laurel Hill and Pinckney serve grade levels on the different grade levels on the same feeder pattern, there is different capacities in both buildings. So that was also something. So there's not necessarily consensus between the Laurel Hill and Pinckney principals, given the space constraints in both buildings are different.
Thank you for giving that information. Any other questions about that, Pamela? Did that answer your?
Well, actually, no, because I'm I just want to make it quite clear that I want to double check, because Jeff, something you said, I want to make sure I didn't misconstrue what you said. Is there a possibility that you're saying that Principal Antonelli could actually handle the growth right now without an expansion?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm sorry I came across that way. At the start of, if things stay the way they are, at the start of 21-22, he will not have room. Something will have to give. So that either means, putting a classroom in a gym, in the multi-purpose room, which, do you want, he doesn't want to do that. I don't think anybody wants that to be next, that they don't have a gym. So he has looked at every feasible possibility, and the expectations are at the start of next school year, he's not going to have room for all the kids if it stays the way it is.
And I think, obviously we know people love their schools, and nobody wants to move, but I know as a parent, I don't want my kid in a classroom with 27 kids. I know as a former teacher, I don't want to teach 27 kids. So none of us like to rezone. I feel like I'm telling the general public, but this isn't something that anybody on the board relishes doing, because we know everybody loves their schools and they want to stay put, but our hands are tied, right? I mean, we need to make a decision, and unfortunately, like Mr. Barohi just said, this isn't like the new addition is going to be done in a year and a half, and so everybody can just hold tight for 1 year, because some of these kids we're rezoning will be out of elementary school. Most of them will be out of elementary school before that addition is done. So just numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. We are in a situation that came up fast, and Jeff, correct me if these numbers are wrong, but Carolina Park opened with like 650, and we're at well over 950 maybe, and so it's grown 100 to 150 students per year. So that, and that, if the county board had had a crystal ball back in 2014 when this was approved to be built, maybe there would have, what could have been built at capacity, but that was 6 years ago. And so, yeah, this board does not like to rezone the same area that quickly. But as we continue tonight, we'll discuss grandfathering options. But I think it is evident that something has to give, for next year. CCSC has already done some things with moving CD, and but for the year after that, something has to give. And so that's tonight we're going to decide what those lines will look like.
Sarah, can I just address one other thing that
Yeah.
I think we have all seen in a lot of emails going, at least my time on the board, going back to Beckham zoning. And this is not to lay blame with CCSD or the town or the developers, but I think a lot of people are under the assumption that CCSD or we as a constituent board are privy to some growth numbers in advance that we aren't. And so I feel like I would like to just let people know that basically we can only work with what we get. Like the information about the growth that we saw at our meetings last year that were presented to us by the town of Mount Pleasant was the first time most of us were seeing that information, correct? It wasn't like, we see what 2025 is going to look like and we're not thinking forward. I think we as a board are just thinking as forward as we can with the information that is given to us. I don't know. I feel like it needs to be addressed, and I am totally guilty of probably feeling this way before I was on the board, that we're not trying to do anything like kind of on the sly or on the down low without expressing any information that we have to the public. I mean, I feel like as a board, and you especially, Sarah, are very good about giving the public the information that we have, which is often not much more than exactly what they have. That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, we are, well, and Marty, I'm not going to give away how many years you've been on this board, but it's been a long time, and Anissa has been very thorough and transparent on rezoning, but CCSD also does a very good job getting the most update information. And when this school was rezoned, that process started in 2016 before it opened in 2017, and that was the best information at the time. Mm-hmm. And so then you look at this growth. So I mean, this is so I think we all have to understand that, but at the same time, moving forward, I do think the D2 board does need to, ideally, in the perfect world, like move forward with giving a little breathing space in some of our schools. I can't believe that we're going to be looking at Mount Pleasant Academy again, which we just did that fairly recently too. And so that we can't get into a ping pong where it's just you nip here, nip there, nip here. And that's why we try to make it part of our plan. This is good for at least 5 years. So let's keep that in mind tonight too, when we're looking at this this rezoning decision, and that it'll be a good one for the future for at least 5 years or longer. But good points, Kristen.
Kristen, on your point, very, very good point that you made. And I'd like to point out to those who are listening that we get down to, we're given a situation and we start working on it, and we have to ask for the information. We are not given. We asked for the town of Mount Pleasant to come before us, or to send us charts, or to send us information. So it's not like we have all of this information and we make determinations from that. After we get it, we may change our decision or our thought processes on whatever we're working on, but it's not something that we are privy to all the time.
Right, any board members, any more comment on that before we dive into this survey result?
I have a question for Carolyn. Carolyn, something that you mentioned, again, just to clarify, the idea that possibly, and we don't know anything about this year because we don't know tomorrow what's going to happen tomorrow, but the idea of waiting, it's kind of like a balance. Like, do we try to make a decision now and give people the chance to transfer to a school that they know that they're going to go to the following year? Or are we waiting for, you mentioned a couple of principals maybe thought we should wait, or maybe the idea that we maybe need to find out a little more information is, do you have a sense that of either way, like your input, would they prefer parents to know now, or would you think that the principals prefer us to make a more informed decision?
There was just not consensus among the three principals, and the reason I'm being very cautious about how I frame my language is because the principals want parents to know that they all want your children. So they're hesitant to push back. I think a couple of folks raised this question around seeing 3 new students come in last week from private schools,
Right.
and just the ambiguity of how many kids we're going to be able to serve in person, with our goal to try to serve 100% of our student body across the system in person, but we also want to do that safely. So there's going to be some balancing acts, and obviously in schools that are tight in terms of enrollment and space, that creates additional constraints on our ability to bring everyone back at the same time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
On that point, just a quick thing, I think it's important for us to remember that if Caroline Park has half of their students who choose to not, depending on what CCSD puts out with their future plans, if they have students who choose to not attend class but are still enrolled at the school and are studying at home, that doesn't really alleviate the number of students for a teacher. Just because their physical bodies aren't in there, we
Right.
still do not want teachers to have classes of 30 kids that, they're still doing all that work for 30 kids, whether or not their physical bodies are in there too. So I think that's also something that we need to keep in mind. Hopefully also, even if next year is an AB, hey guys, if next year is an AB schedule, or if some kids do choose to stay home, that's not hopefully a permanent situation. So that's also like a Band-Aid that is basically dissolvable, because those are almost like imaginary numbers at that point. We can't count on what a September 5th enrollment number is, because we don't know what that means for December at that point either. I'm going to mute myself now again because 2 kids just walked in my house.
You're right, ma'am. I mean, we're planning, as most school districts are, for a full restart, for a hybrid restart, and for an option for a virtual school, and making sure that if we do have to close again for weather or any reason, we have a strong virtual instructional program to rely on. So next year, we want to make sure that we have the flexibility to offer meaningful instruction in a variety of ways.
Yeah, and it is confusing to think about this fall, next year, the next year, but I think if you think about private school students returning, is there any reason to think the rate would be different at the Park West school system versus Carolina Park? Or if people are to return to not CCSD online learning, but true, separate, withdrawn homeschooling, I would imagine that rate would be similar, across the board. So I don't know that any of those, and then hopefully this all will, as Jeff, I think you told me the other day on the phone, is this will eventually pass. And so we do have to plan for rezoning for the area, the population, how many, using those numbers of, maybe we're not going to see them all in August, or maybe we might see a few extra, but it's planning with those steady numbers for growth that we do have, and we do know which areas people are moving into. But yeah, it makes everything interesting these days, right? Making these school decisions, this virus. Well, we can move on to the survey results. Stephanie, thank you so much for putting this together.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
And of course, Stephanie, is there anything you want to say about any of it before I make any comments or any explanation or
no,
any recap?
I cut snippets, and then for the synopsis area here, these were the most commonly mentioned things by people for the other option response. So I just kind of condensed that down. But then I did include all those comments at the end that everyone left on their survey so that you could see those.
Very good.
And just to remind it, so option 1 is the one that goes further up 17, correct? And option 2 stops. Option 1 goes to, is it Theodore Road, and stops, option 2 stops at either Lehman or,
Yeah.
it includes an area on the other side of 17.
Do you want to ask BJ to share the maps now?
Yeah.
So just to remind
I can-
everyone, because
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop my share
one's
and
one and which
maybe
one's
BJ can do his maps.
right, so that option 1 is the one that goes to Theodore Road and it stays to the right side of 17, and just as far as the survey goes, it had fewer few people that preferred that, and there's option 2 that comes down lower, and then it pulls in a few students, like what currently about 40 or is it 38 from Faison Road down.
Option road. Option 1.
That's it, side by side.
There we go. Great.
And yeah, the majority of the responses were for option 2.
Mm-hmm.
And a good many for just some other option, right? Or no.
Something else, yes.
Third option. I think it's ironic that the third option, in which, you know what that is, but the third option is almost as much as the as option 2. 58. Well, I have old numbers. I have 58 and 61. That was when it was like 114, I think, or so, or 112 or something. I thought that was ironic.
Steph, can you go back to the survey? Pull that survey back up, or the survey results.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, I forgot y'all flip flopping between.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, let me get back here. That didn't do it. Hold on. Share between.
Mm-hmm.
We also did the breakdown by zip code, and then I also did it by neighborhood. For most people. I learned a lot about Mount Pleasant doing all this. I was Google mapping all kinds of things.
I have another question that if we've addressed before, forgive me for not remembering, but with rezoning for the 21-22 year, when that is in effect, is that going to bring CD back to Carolina Park, or will it remain at Laurel Hill?
Plan is to bring it back to Carolina Park at this point.
They want to, okay. I just didn't know if that would make a big difference on the overall numbers.
So how many students is that I'm sure you probably said it at other meetings and I don't remember.
Each class caps at 22 and they're always full. So 44 pre-K CD students.
Wow, that might make a big difference in another year.
I do know Mr.
Bring them
Antonelli
back.
doesn't want his kids over there long term though. When it was first brought up to him to move CD, he said,
Yeah,
we want to keep all our kids. So that's what I didn't know if it had been addressed to just keep basically a CD pod over at Laurel Hill, if that is something that there's any interest in doing.
Yeah, and I think the comparison needs to be, if it gets down to this, I'm not saying it necessarily will, what's better to have the CD located for a few years at Laurel Hill versus trailers or work, or us rezoning and flip-flopping people back. But Jeff or Carolyn, can you tell us if does every elementary school in D2 have a CD program on its campus?
I'm afraid I'm new and I don't know. I don't think so, but Mr. Brody?
Every district, two school does, but not every school in the district does.
Thank you.
oh, yeah.
And I have a question. The numbers that we were given, the enrollment growth numbers, I believe that they take out the CD numbers for this year, but the numbers we were given that extend like to 2029, do those include the CD numbers?
Those do
Those do.
include.
Okay.
It's based off of 40 students because that's what his CD number has been since he opened. That's what it's capped at.
Okay. But for next year, the number we were given, the 10, 15 includes that.
It included it.
Okay. Got it. Great.
I don't think I understand. Because it looks like you've got a problem. You're totally full. You moved 44 students. And yet we've got, how many we're moving in rezoning? I've forgotten the number. I've got it written somewhere. 200 and something students, right? And 250 to 275 move out of Carolina Park Elementary. That's a big note I've got. And 44 are going to be fine where they are now. Why don't they stay there? Why do you bring 44 back and we're trying to move 250 to 275 students? That am I misinterpreting or misunderstanding something?
Not necessarily, ma'am, but the desire instructionally is that, like, those are the 4-year-olds, right? So that having them in the building that they're going to then go to kindergarten and with their brothers and sisters is preferable. Given the alternative for this year, we were afraid that we weren't going to have sufficient space to accommodate the K to 5. We made a change, and again, parents are grateful, as Kristen said on this call, because lots of folks want the CD program, so they're willing to work with us. But the preference is to start the kids in the school they're going to be in for a little while so they can get used to the school, have continuity, exposure to teachers, and there's lots of wins for that from an academic
Marty,
perspective.
if we only needed to rezone 50 kids, I would agree with you and say there's just a permanent CD pod at Laurel Hill. But because it's 285 or 290, I don't feel like that's enough of a fix. Because if it was 40 kids, problem solved, put CD over there, and people are just like, oh, I got into CD. They're usually pretty happy to drive 5 more minutes that way. But I do understand.
And I see that, but
kids, it's hard.
But what Carolyn has said is the very thing that these parents that we've heard from and gotten calls from, in addition to the survey, Carolyn, you're saying the very same thing they're saying. I mean, I don't know, they might be fine with this, but I mean, I could just, if we had a group, I could just hear them now. You know, I don't know. It just, I think they're fine over there where they are. And I understand about being, and then going into first grade and all that. That's exactly what we're doing here with some of these students. They just got there, now they're having to move. They've been there 2 years, now they got to move. And we always had a plan of 5 years. That was always our goal in when we would rezone an area. We even put off rezoning Jenny Moore years ago. Finally, we got permission. We kept bucking it so much and saying why it didn't make any sense. We were moving them from one school to another and go right back within 2 years. And, you know, we're shuffling kids around. And so I feel, you know, if we're going to do this, which I'm in favor of option 3, which I call it building the addition. That's what I have written down, and I've said from day one, that was my option 3. But Jeff has eloquently explained all of that to us. I just don't see bringing 44 students back in there.
Well,
And that's just the way I'm thinking about it, I guess.
Well, Marty, I'll just say that while I would love that to happen, at the same time, parents, for the year of putting them over to Laurel Hill, maybe they have 2 kids and one's now in CD at this place, and it's not ideal. It's better, you know. Then you're going to have 40 parents who are upset about the fact that this is always going to happen, and they should go to the school that they're going to finish off at. So yes, do I want to impact the least amount of people? Regardless, we're impacting the same amount of people, because we're either impacting them by making them go all the way to Laurel Hill to take their kids to CD, or we're making them move now for rezoning. So it's the same amount of kids who are impacted. Honestly, it's just, we're just moving 40.
I don't see that. Okay, I just don't see that. You know, we're looking at a lot more than 44. And it's not that I don't have any empathy. It's just that I'm trying to do it fact to fact, you know, even Stephen. And I see where, you know, some parents are saying, well, I'm going to have one child here and one child there. And, you know, anyway,
Well,
we know what the survey says, and that's what I'm going by. The same feeling for 44 kids is the same feeling for these 275 or 250, whatever we're doing. It's the same, to me, it's the very same reasoning.
And Marty, and
Yes.
I kind of halfway agree with you, and if we do end up going with a more conservative rezoning, then that would be a piece that as the next, you know, going toward expansion, the CPSC looks at whether or not they need to keep the kids at Laurel Hill Primary. But I think it's important, Carolyn, if you can help us out here. I wanted to make sure all the board members understand for the CD program that we're talking about and the 40 kids, can you explain whether or not preschool is universal? Is it free? Do all the 4-year-olds go, or are they only selected for a certain way? And then also, are they 4-year-olds allowed to ride the bus? I think board members need to understand, and I don't even know, I think I know the answers to all those questions, but I just want to make sure that they understand it's a little bit different than our K through 5 that we're rezoning.
Sorry, double muted. I can speak to the instructional side of that. So, but I will have to defer to Mr. Burrowy on the bus.
Had two.
What's that, Trisha?
I'm sorry, I can answer some of the other logistic ones too, because I've had 2 kids go through CD. So if there's something
Okay.
you're not sure of, I probably know.
So we do not have universal pre-K in the county. We have a select number of programs in each school, but not even in each school. To get into a CD program, there's an evaluation process that looks at several different variables, including where the student is developmentally, family factors, number of adults in the household, economic pieces, to make up a waiting list in terms of who is offered positions in those programs. Because the idea is to get students ahead of the starting line in terms of readiness for kindergarten. So that's our general approach. I don't know about the busing, so either Kristen or Mr. Burrow might be able to answer.
At least I think it's all over the district, but the 4-year-olds in my district, my kids have taken the bus and have the option. They're regular CCSD students once school starts, I believe. They can go to Kaleidoscope, lunch program, pretty much everything else that's involved.
I'm going to hire Krista to work for us.
I would love.
Answers.
I will work in the CD program. It's my favorite thing. I wish we could offer it to everybody. But actually, it brings me to my next concern, which I just thought of as we were talking about this, would be if we do have all the CDs in one pod at Laurel Hill, I could only imagine that there could be a little infighting maybe, or people who are like, well, why can't my kid who lives in Park West get in to CD when there's all these seats at my school, but we're now holding 40 of them for a different district. So I mean, I could see that also turning into a different issue, I guess.
And can someone from CCSD clarify, I'm under the impression that at Laurel Hill, since they have space, we have extra CD that it's not just the Carolina Park Elementary CD went away and there's only, I mean, do they not have 80 spots over there at Laurel Hill Primary, or is that wrong?
No, we don't. Since CD is not funded by the state, we're not able to fund CD for all. And so not all the kids that are zoned for Laurel Hill get into the CD class. Not all the kids for Carolina Park that are CD get into the CD class. So the classes that are being set up for Carolina Park and Laurel Hill are designated for Carolina Park kids. And that across the district, we have kids that don't get into CD because it's not universal.
So will they be separate?
So let me answer the question. So the seats at Laurel Hill would not go to Laurel Hill kids if we weren't bringing CP over there.
Right.
Wait, say that one again.
The seats that we're saving for Carolina Park kids over at Laurel Hill would not go to Laurel Hill if there was no class coming over.
It would just go away.
Yeah, it's just not it. There's not 80 empty seats being funded at Laurel Hill. We're bringing 40 over as part of the district allotment for that school.
Right. So there's
along with the teachers and the support staff for those classrooms.
Right.
And just to let you know, there are 56 allotted seats for Laurel Hill for CD next year.
Just for Laurel Hill students?
Just for Laurel Hill.
And then there'll be extra 40. And will those students be separate? I mean, I don't know that it matters, but I just think we should know. Will the Carolina Park Elementary CD be separate from the Laurel Hill Primary CD, or will they be combined?
My understanding is we're moving the faculty from Carolina Park over to teach those classes. So it's not like the students are separated from the other students around the building, but the teachers and the faculty are Carolina Park faculty. Does that make sense?
Right, and they still report to Mr. Antonelli, is that correct?
That's my understanding. I think this is more of a space change than anything else, with I think the caveat that they can obviously reach out to the principal on Laurel Hill if they have issues.
Yeah,
Right, and with that in mind, I think that's kind of why maybe we don't want this to be a long-term situation, because it puts a strain on those teachers being in a different building and not being with the principal, and it
Right.
just, as much as I would love to say then we get to zone 40 less kids, like I say, I think it's like apples and oranges. We're just putting them in different buckets, and we're impacting those kids regardless.
Right, but
why can't they stay at Laurel Hill and that principal is their principal?
I think
Well,
that's-
we don't even have to go there, but I do think, I agree with Marty that that's a valid point, that it makes more sense until August of 2022, that if overcrowding is still a problem, and we won't know with COVID and all that, that it does make more sense to keep CD, Carolina Park Elementary CD at Laurel Hill Primary, rather than look into trailers or to rezone students so far up 17 that in a few years we're going to be rezoning them back to Carolina Park. So I'm agreeing that that is something that this board will not decide whether CD stays at Laurel Hill Park or Carolina Park Elementary. It's something that
Right, I realize that, yeah.
But I think we can take it into consideration, like, you know, if we're willing to go more conservative on this rezoning and push for the expansion of Carolina Park, and we'll talk about that and see if the facts, you know, or work for that, then I think that sort of, you kind of keep that on the back burner, like, you know, no, we're not going to build trailers. So we've been through that, and it doesn't make any sense for a lot of reasons. But if there was ever a pinch for a year, one more year, that I think Marty, I don't think it's a long-term solution. I think it's a getting us to a building expansion possibility. But
Well, I think the reality is, and as much as I'd love to say that, I mean, Jeff's kind of telling us that in a perfect world, it's 2022, but it's probably more like 2025. So that means we're looking at CD for 5 years. I
think this board needs to talk about how many kids we're going to rezone in option
Sure.
3, because I think we do need to look at our entire district as a whole and how much space we have, and are we going to keep bit by bit and ping ponging kids around each, you know, every few years, or is it are we going to, you know, get that wing built basically? So I think it can be sooner. We know it's possible. I had hoped for 2023, 2024, and Ms. Barowie said that, you know, if all things line, it could be sooner than that. And this school was voted on to be built in 2014, and 3 years later it was built and opened because of the growth. So we have the numbers for the growth. We know we do know what's coming, and so we do need to talk about that. So let's see where we are on the agenda. And actually, let's make sure we're finishing up the survey. We got a little bit into sort of what we want to do for rezoning. Stephanie, was there anything else?
Miss Johnson, just Miss Dorsey at Laurel Hill is listening in on the Facebook Live and wanted to make sure that we knew that they have been transferred, those CD teachers, to Laurel Hill so that they would feel part of that community, given they're in that building, and then would be transferred back to Carolina Park if we move that class back. And a lot of the CD content is centrally managed. So I appreciate her clarifying, given I'm new, because I didn't want to misspeak.
Well, thank you. Thank you for her pointing that out and for you letting us know. So
Yeah.
because it is sort of like, okay, are these like the Lang and the Jenny Moore students that were like temporarily in the building over there, or, but you know, if they're actually transferring over there, it might dive better for the year or however long that they're over there. Skinner, is there anything else on the survey that you wanted to point out as far as the results?
No, I don't think so, unless y'all have any other questions.
Does anyone have any other questions about those?
Well, this is insignificant, but I've never seen some of these zip codes for Mount Pleasant. I didn't know what they.
Marty, if you're down at Darrell Creek and Tupelo, those are still Pleasant, but they have an Allendale zip code. That's,
And that is what?
those two that are not,
That
The
we don't know.
29429 and
Yeah.
29428.
Okay.
there's like that little.
We don't even have 29464. And
Yeah.
that's,
From down there cared, I guess.
They got their
oh,
own.
it is down there?
They don't care. They didn't put their input in. Yeah.
So they didn't, this is just the ones that responded, is
Right.
what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody.
So,
interpreted
The
it.
We're not-
9464 wasn't impacted.
Right.
yeah, that's true, because that's Stone's West and, no, that's south. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I knew it was insignificant. I just wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, well, that's good information. I guess let's switch back over to the map. PJ has the map. So the survey results were, we put forward option 1, option 2. We talked at the last meeting and now a little bit at this meeting that, what would, just because I think it's important to have a conversation. Both the maps rezone 290 students, and note those are live-in numbers, not actual attending. Attending is less. But I think with, the discussion is, what would it, let's look at these two, and then what would we do if it was less than that? How can you do that? And I know a lot of you have spent time poring over certain areas, and there's just extremely hard to divide them in a way that makes sense. But first, let's just, since we have this in front of us, we'll talk about option 1 and option 2. Everything just from surveys, from your own research. Board members, or any pros or cons you want to share about either one of these options?
I still have the concern of the little, whatever that's called, going across 17 with those few homes in there. I think it was 30 some odd students, I believe.
Right, it's like 38 or 40, something like.
They're okay. I just, I really don't see the point of that at all. It just reminds me of Long Point Road and up in there years ago. But I know I've got to forget that. And going up on option 1, all the way up, we have 290 total there and 293 in the other one. I just don't see why we need to go across there. That's my gist on it. And then we're going up further on 17 to Theodore Road, which takes in several more subdivisions.
Right. I mean, the reason the maps balance out number-wise is because if you look at option 2 and the finger, that's like 38 or 40 students. Well, that's the same amount of students from Leaven Road to Theodore. So if you remember that on option 1, that far from Theodore Road down to Leaven Road,
Yeah.
is area 3. In area 3 and area 4 is the Faison Road finger. That's the same amount. So it's sort of a balance. Do we go this way or this way? And just to point out, even though that finger looks weird, remember, option 2, we're not looking at the total map for Park West schools. That is just an extension of everything to the left, which is Pinckney Laurel Hill. So it's really just a slim add-on to capture a few more students that basically are right across the road from Park West schools. So I wish we could, I know we don't have us in front of us, but if we were to look at the full map of what the new zone would be for the Pinckney Laurel Hill system, it's not going to have a finger sticking out of it. You see, Marty, we're just adding that part in to all the rest of it, and it just kind of completes it to
Right,
Faith Road, which is a
basic.
main road in that area. And it keeps a straight line. It doesn't divide neighborhoods or anything. So does anyone else have the concern I do that option one, or really both options, but option one in particular, just it goes so far north. You know,
Yeah.
well past Wanda, well past my house, way out there, and then you still have the finger from Fraser Road. You know, still that to me seems like you'll have students crossing each other, and they're just so far apart. It doesn't seem to make geographical sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've driven down there plenty of times, of course, but I drove by it today or yesterday and really got a sense of just kind of how far Theodore is, and it's pretty far.
Well, the only thing I'd like to point out too is we're thinking again, future, and where is development going? You know, that's why Carolina Park is like it is. I mean, I forgot what we added per year. Was it over 100, Sarah, after they opened in what, 2017? And here we are.
More than 300 students over. I mean,
Yeah.
Get 350 or something.
Yeah. So here we go,
So you free up 250 plus seats, and if the addition's built, that's 300 more. That's 550 seats. Simple math. I'm just offering the number.
Oh, if we free up 200 now, and then you're going to bill for 300, you mean? Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
If that came to fruition, that's what you would have. If the
Oh,
growth-
buddy, we won't. No, we won't.
If the growth continues as you are saying,
Yep.
you'll have 250 seats with the rezoning and 300 seats with the building addition.
But you haven't, I mean, that's down the road. That's not going to happen.
It's down.
We should have built that 300 to begin with, of course.
Based on
And
what
here we
data?
go again.
Based
Huh?
on what data? Based on what data? We should have.
Data that we're experiencing right now.
If you
We
want to
would
be an
not
armchair
have to
quarterback,
rezone.
that's fine. If you want to be an armchair quarterback, if we would have known that, we would have built it. As you all pointed out earlier, we didn't have that data. We didn't know that. So
Yeah, we did.
there's
Okay.
Yeah, and Mark,
Okay,
just to point out, you're looking at our the way things are. I don't think anyone's proposing to leave things the way they are. I mean, I know we would love for this to be expanded tomorrow. If it was, we still are going to have to rezone area 1 and probably area 4 out for the future. Because there won't be space. And we do know this. We know by 2029, we know in almost 10 years, we're still not going to be at 1,200 plus, which is what the expansion will be. But we do, before we get there, we hit a few spikes. So, we know some relief has to be made. The decision now for next school year. Mr. Broey has said that for not this coming school year, the next one, we have to take students off. But how many do you take? Do you take the recommendation of the 250 to 275? Marty, am I hearing you say that's too many, or what are you saying?
No, I'm saying this is what we need to do, is what we've been told. We don't want to do this.
Well, we have to
I better speak for myself. I don't want to do this. I don't want to rezone children within 2 years, students within 2 years. Don't want to do it. Not the least bit interested in it. I think it's sad that it wasn't planned any better, and I'm certainly not putting it on our board because we did the best we could at the time. And but all I'm trying to say is, look what's happened. We need the addition right now. We needed it yesterday, and we wouldn't be doing this. we
So-
wouldn't be doing this.
So how do we get to an expansion in a few years? What do we do before we get there? And we know we also don't want to rezone students to Park West schools. And when that expansion comes and
Right.
stuff is
We don't
still
wanna rezone.
growing in our middle, that we're going to rezone it back. That is absolutely off the table for me, that's even a possibility, that this is a temporary fix. I mean, I think we need to look at these areas and think, okay, for this area 3, the solution is expansion, something like that. But when you look at area 1, the solution is rezoning, because there, something's got to give somewhere. And so it's a question of, do we go with option 1 and 2 and bring all of these students out and let then the expansion would happen whenever, 5, 6 years from now. I mean, it's sort of, and I want to, Marty, I hear you saying you don't want to rezone, period, but we just need to do one of these. But I mean, is there not an in between, like a compromise where we are rezoning enough students to alleviate over the next several years?
Mhm.
So,
And that we would never, we never say never, we would not rezone those same students back in for the expansion. The
Mhm.
students that need to be moved out are the ones who, I'm looking at the map, are across the street from Park West schools and will be zoned for there for the next 10 years.
Sarah,
And then, but I'm just concerned more about area 2 and 3, especially 3. 3 is, option 1 is not, I just can't imagine that makes any kind of sense. But is it necessary to rezone some of all of these 200, and whether it's 260 or 290, depending on how you look at the live-in or the attend?
Sarah.
Yes.
Can we get a number for area 1 and area 4 only, and not area 2?
DJ, did you have any of that to show up on the map? I mean, we've got it on a piece of paper. Let's see what it is.
I can kind of extrapolate, but
Well, 1 and 4, that's area 1 is Charleston National. Area 4 is the Faison Road addition to that.
right.
So
Yeah,
live-in,
that little finger.
yeah, last year the live-in was 146.
Sarah, get close or keep your face toward the microphone.
146.
Wait,
Okay.
what? What's
That's
that
the
number?
live-in for 1 and 4
Oh, for 1 and 4. Okay.
from last year. And then we have,
Oh,
yeah,
1
I
and
mean, that's a,
yes, you're right. 1 and 4. Okay, got it.
And so the actual enrollment, if you look at how many students that lived in 1 and lived in 4 and actually were attending Carolina Park last year, was 127.
Okay, so now my question is, add in or delete the CD kids? Because this doesn't, does this include CD kids or does not include any CD kids?
It probably, and y'all, CCSD can clarify, but it would include some, it wouldn't include all. It might include, I think we had the grades broken down, and it was,
Oh, okay.
well, if you even look at option 1 and 2, there's only 4. Most of those CD kids live, don't live in these areas we're considering. If you look at what's on the screen right now,
Right. So we're not zoning those CD kids out. Okay.
the CD kids are more, they're more, I mean, if I'm looking at this correctly, if you have 40 CD kids, only a few of them are in option 1 and 2. So all the rest are students that aren't being considered for rezoning, so that would be additional, mostly additional to that number I just gave you. DJ, do you have that map that shows area, either the one that shows 1, 2, 3, and 4?
It's called study areas for District 2 rezoning.
Yes, those study areas that you referenced before the meeting. Actually, can't show those. Those maps did have student locations, so unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to share them publicly. I could come back another time and recreate maps without those students, but for this meeting, I didn't have time. I didn't know that was needed.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, and that's, we didn't ask for that. But we do have, the board members, you do have that, that information, and I have it in front of me as far as the numbers. But, so basically area 1 is Charleston National, and it's BJ, at least are you looking at it? Is that to know what that dividing road is?
Right, can you point to it with your cursor so
Yeah,
everyone?
absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to pull up just option 1. So what these areas were they're referencing is to come up with these 2 options. In previous meeting, we had 4 study areas to kind of break down puzzle pieces and get the best data we could. So area 1 was this Charleston National area that divided down this little pathway. If you follow my mouse, I guess that's the best way. Come down here, and it creeped across here and split where these newer development houses weren't included. So that was area 1. Area 2 takes off that line and goes down Lieben Road. That is really well shown here. So this was the end of area 2.
2, right.
PJ, I'm sorry, for area 1, where you just did your little cursor, sorry.
Right there.
Okay.
Did you say the new area? That's Stratton on the Sound?
Mhm.
Yes, that was included in area 2.
But that was not in area 1.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this was area 2 left off. So the difference between option 1 and option 2, this up here up to Theater Road, let me go back here. This was area 3.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the what looks like a finger, this is area 4. This will actually conjoin. So as mentioned before, Lowell Hill and Pinckney, their zone is adjacent to this line. So that would just include this little bump of anything west of 17.
PJ, can you clarify on area 1 that dividing line was, is it Old Course Lane, or is that the road that was it, Old Course Lane?
So for this
Or
dividing,
above
like I
it?
mentioned before, splitting up these, you have to keep neighborhoods and areas together. This split actually didn't fall on any major road, but it did split on easements and defined geographical splits. So I was able to do that.
And do you know offhand that, I was trying to figure this out myself, area 1, does it include all of the Charleston National neighborhoods? And if it does, or whether it does or not, does it include anything more than that?
No, it was
looks
just
like it looks like you kind of went around the Charleston National neighborhoods. Is that right?
so yeah. So area 1 went down here, went south, and went into down here. This area was area 1. At the previous meeting, you all decided area 1 and area 2, the numbers and how it configured out would just be combined. That's what the reason why area 1 and area 2 is really just one area, and that was the same. It doesn't change between option 1 and option 2.
Okay.
And area 1 and area 2, I've got that map. I do have that one that you don't have up there. And area 1 and area 2, that included Copahees South. That gave us the number of 260, according to what I have.
That's
And
correct.
then, so we went from then the next one was area 1, 2, and 3, and that included Copahees North.
Yep.
And that's 290.
Yep. This is option 1 is area 1, 2, and 3 combined. You're correct.
Okay.
So,
And that's where we got our 290.
Correct.
And that goes through Charleston National. But are you saying it doesn't include Stratton on the Sound is part of Charleston National? But in option 1, it has to include it because that goes all the way to Theodore Road. But you're saying area 1 and area 2 area 2 included Stratton on the Sound, not
Correct.
area 1.
Yes, that's correct. So when I subdivided this, being from North Charleston, not too familiar with the area, but I did try my best to subdivide these puzzle pieces, these study areas, to include a well-defined group number of students. That's really the best that we could do. Upon giving those study areas, we kind of move forward with these options.
Okay.
Well, and as we've all been told in many, many emails, Stratton by the Sound is not part of Charleston National. It's tucked in there apparently, but it is its own separate neighborhood, correct?
There are many separate neighborhoods in Charleston National.
I mean, I could be mistaken, or that could be just people.
No, that's what they're saying, but they are
But it's
part.
actually, it's part of Charleston National? Are we sure?
Yeah.
We don't have it
Yeah.
in area 1, right? We
Don't
just
have
said
a
you
what?
go around it.
Right.
I thought that's what I was asking. I think he said in area 1, he did not include it.
Right.
It's in area 2, and I can't tell, to tell you the truth,
That's
how
correct.
far over that line is.
Okay, so here's my question. If you take area 1 and area 4, and we have, as Sarah mentioned, live-in was 146, enrollment, Carolina Park, 1920 enrollment was 127. If you look at our enrollment growth and knowing that we have a bubble in the year 2014, just whatever, the numbers go up and that's the highest, and you minus 127 from 127, that gives you 1,000. So if we only rezoned area 1 and area 4 at 2000, by 2024, we would be at 1,000, which would put us over capacity. It might even put us over capacity the year before, but we bought ourselves a little time, and then hopefully maybe the expansion goes through. I mean, that's my
With the
thought.
expansion, you're over though, Pamela.
Say that again, Marty?
Even with the expansion, you're over.
No, you're not over.
No,
Yeah,
no,
the expansion was 900. Oh, we're 1,200. 900 plus 300.
right.
Okay,
So, I mean,
sorry.
My feeling is, and I said this at the last meeting, I don't want to rezone too many kids going to Laurel Hill and Pinckney for 2 reasons. One is there is still some potential additional growth throughout Mount Pleasant, so we don't want to get them tapped out and have to figure something out there. And number 2, we just don't know what's going to happen. Like, we're in a really weird situation. So
I
you
agree.
know, we either upset many more people and do area 1 and 2 and 4, or we upset less people with 1 and 4, knowing that we might have to rezone again a little faster. And people are just going to have to understand that we did this in a really crazy year, and there's nothing we can do about it. We don't like to do it. We don't want to do it every 3 years, but it just might happen. But I don't think we have the ability to go to our target number of 290 and feel good about it.
And that is where the CD program comes into play. Because when you're at 1,000 and you take away 40, you're at where they are this year, and this year work. But that's also waiting, you know, hopefully their expansion, you know, it's rolling the dice a little. I think this board can recommend to the county board that this is a priority project, that we are rezoning students out to get us through the next few years, but that overall, I mean, they have to know that just our area is growing. And I mean, I think we have definitely, I mean, I think everyone is agreed we have to rezone some, and we do, and it's not about like upsetting this group or that group. I mean, you know, the rezoning decision, you have to take in the input, but you have to be responsible, and that you're not going to come back in 3 years and do something, or you're going to flip flop people back in 5 years to the other schools. So you have to do what makes sense. The students, I mean, I would feel good rezoning out students we know for sure will stay with Park West schools, which definitely I would say is 1 and 4.
Right.
I don't like to call out particular neighborhoods like this in a public meeting, but I wonder what about 1-4 and Stratton by the Sound, because I'm looking at a map and there's a similar kind of line that cut them out would cut them in to this rezoning. And BJ, I don't know if you have that in front of you, but Stratton by the Sound is its own area. I mean, there is one road. Well, I'm looking at Pandora. Did you see when you were dividing any way to keep Stratton by the Sound in with Area 1? Because that is an area that has growth, and we've got the numbers of how many units are coming. That was part of the study. 57 single-family detached units.
The lines that were drawn for these areas were just kind of slotted to group the best amount of students. We can move forward and redraw lines and make a bunch of different options if that is what's required. I can pull numbers and anything you'd want to see. But this was what was presented with the task that was asked of me, and I was able to do this. And if there's a different task, I'll be able to make that happen as well.
Yeah, I don't know, board members. One, I mean, I think how comfortable are you all with only rezoning 1 and 4, which we could do tonight, or looking at one of the other options, or do you think it's worth looking at 1 and 4 and then, because I mean, I would like the numbers to be a little higher, but it's really hard to divide that area. But Stratton by the Sound, I mean, I'm looking at the map, and it's just the same way it was included in Area 2, it could also be included in Area 1. It is a separate, and you do have a cross the road in both ways. But is there any interest in looking at another map that includes that, or do y'all feel comfortable with one of these other 3 maps that we've discussed tonight?
I guess my question is, and I have to look at a map because I can't tell from this one and I don't want to switch screens, is does Stratton by the Sound go through the Charleston National neighborhood, or does it go up to 17 by a different route? You know what I mean?
Oh,
It goes through Charleston National that I know of. Somebody mentioned there's a back road in there, but I was out there like, I guess about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, no, about 3 weeks ago. And, you know, it's all developing in there. They have 20 houses left that are not, that are under construction, but are not purchased yet. And it's over 100 that have been built in there. And the way I went is through Old Course Lane is the second entrance to Charleston National, okay? You know, up, you go kind of past the hospital, and then they have an entrance on the left where you can go in the back, the side wing of the Roper Hospital. Well, across the street is Old Course Lane that goes into the different subsections, I'll call them, because that's what they are, of Charleston National. And then it goes on back in there, and you wind around and you get to Stratton by the Sound.
yeah, and I would agree. Marty just described it perfectly, and I'm looking at a map. I have 2 screens in front of me.
I just
It's
pulled it up on my phone too.
It's actually makes more of a straight line to include Stratton by the Sound. And DJ, I'm not criticizing you drawing lines. I think we're trying to look for a few more because we know, I don't know. I mean, I'm feeling like 1 and 4 will buy us some time. I feel like 1 and 4 and this area that we know for a fact has a certain number of students to come. We have it in a study. And it's a straight shot from Old Course Lane. There is a back way out. It is not anything, you know, I do think it's worth looking at, but if there's to come back Wednesday.
I have a question. I'm just looking on my phone at the map. Pandora, I think it's called Pandora Drive. Looks like like, is Pandora Drive one of those roads with actual houses on it, or like it kind of links across, and that's the only thing to me that makes Stratton by the Sound more in area 2, which is maybe why BJ did that.
Well, you have to cross a street either way. Like, to include it in one, you have to cross, I think it's called Stratton Place, but it comes off of Old Course Lane and Stratton.
I see.
To cut them out, you had to cut them on their own road to get them out to Highway 17.
Okay.
I think it's very much going the back way to go out the other way. But yeah, you would have to cut it somewhere, and we would, if we do ask for this, we would ask for BJ's expertise to, because there's a river. I mean, there's a couple of places where, but we need to make sure there's not a neighborhood or two houses, right? We're not dividing something.
Right.
And I'm willing to go drive back there. But is the board feel like it's worth looking at that? Do you feel confident with one of these other 3 options we discussed tonight, or do you think it's worth looking at adding in that area for next Wednesday?
You mean draw a different map, including that?
One that shows area 1, area 4, which gives us, whatever, 150 kids, maybe a few less than that.
Wow.
But then shows that growing area, which we know there is space over there at the Park West schools. To me, it seems like worth looking at, especially knowing it's an area with that growth coming that would fit into the Park West schools.
Sarah, only because I'm literally looking at the neighborhoods on my phone right now and the individual streets. I like that, but I mean, I could be wrong here. I feel like I would love to just make a decision tonight because I hate rezoning. Yeah. We've done it, but I feel like we really should. You all tell me, is this something that we can decide tonight or should decide, or is it something that we should let the public see this map of, only because we're in this weird Zoom meeting where now I feel like we're cutting and pasting and we're not.
Can we call a special meeting so we can get this, so we can get another?
Yeah, just so we can
meeting?
Put that map up for the public to see, even if it's a week or two, and then we can make, and then we can vote at that point.
What's the transfer window time again?
It opened Monday and it goes to July 15th. I think we can't get into a cycle. Marty, this board has rezoned for a very long time, and I don't think it should be, we change it, then we have a whole nother input window, we change it. Everything we do is, like tonight, we definitely wouldn't, I just threw that out there. Let's pull that one in. Okay, we're going to vote on that tonight. That would not be fair. That's right. Why we put it to another meeting. It's noticed.
Okay,
I would ask CCSD if they would go ahead and put that map up. I mean, typically they would put it up after we see it at a meeting. I mean, there's 2 ways to go about it. They could put it up, DJ by Friday, get this option that shows that, or it's going to take 2 weeks to do, and we look at it next Wednesday, and then we schedule 2 meetings. But anything that is on our agenda, we give notice, and if it's a map, I do think it has to be out there so that people have time for public comment, not a whole survey and the whole, all that. We've made these changes because of the survey results. But yes, I agree that we don't need to schedule a meeting next Wednesday. Put this map up for the first time and vote on it. So if CCSD can tell us if they can get that map together and get it up Friday when our packets go out, if that's too soon, then we just push it out a little bit further. How soon can you get us up, BJ? Could you put that map together where it's something that could go online and something we're considering?
Is that to Jeff or to Stephanie? I mean,
BJ or Jeff, whoever.
I can get it put up really quick. Now, with your input of exactly where you want to draw those lines, I can get it up online fairly fast.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like.
BJ, I will offer this. You may not want it, but I've done this so much in the past, especially Jenny Moore and Lang and all those. I get in my car and I ride and I pretend I'm the bus in a lot of situations. And that's how we remedied one where a subsection, or really a subdivision, said when it came to rezoning that no, they weren't part of this particular neighborhood. And I'm not going to name neighborhoods, but no, they're not a part of that neighborhood. But at the beginning, they were.
Right.
And they drove their little golf carts through and they used the amenities of that subsection. But when it came to rezoning, they didn't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about bus routes. I mean, the bus routes likely.
And I see it right here too. I read those survey results, okay? And it sticks out like a sore thumb. And I'm still not going to name a neighborhoods, but I would be willing. You said you live in North Charleston and you don't know, so you haven't ridden this area. You can follow me. We can wear masks. I will take my time and be glad to do that, so you'll know exactly where you're drawing those lines. And I've done that with other people in your position. Let's just put it that way. I'm not trying to make you stand out or anything like that. I'm willing to do that if you would like that.
No, I don't mind it. Ultimately, this is your constituent. You know the area. I know data and maps. I know numbers. So I don't mind it. But it would just delay me getting this map posted. And any other further options that we may come, it's just going to delay the decision on. And I know this has to be done sooner than later.
All right.
I think BJ can get the maps out, and then and Marty, I still think your information is valuable, but we could do that separately. I don't think BJ needs to do that, but I think it's valuable information.
Yeah, I think Marty, that plan is going to work. If BJ, it sounds like he can, get this, tomorrow, the next day, and then.
Yeah. Well, we just resolved so much by writing, and the persons that I've done that with in the past was like, oh my gosh, I see what you're saying, and it makes a difference. But if you don't think that needs to be done, that's fine. I've already done it myself, just so I would know. I can't read these maps that well, but I already got out because I didn't know some things, and I may go right again, just by myself, to see what's going on as far as Theodore Road and all that's concerned. But that's fine. I just made the offer. That's okay.
No, I think it's something we should all do. If BJ can get this map that basically, I can look at this map, Stratton by the Sound, you can cut around it. You're gonna have to cross Pandora Drive somewhere, and you can kind of see where roads dead ends and things like that. But if he can get that to us, and then Marty, we get in the car and we go drive and confirm that that we're not missing something. Probably the fastest way. But now,
I have one more question regarding that. As I'm pulling it up a little tighter, because we've also had questions about that one little road, Landau Road. That is not in Area 1, correct?
No.
Okay.
They would, under this.
That's Area 2.
Map 3.
Area 2.
Still be at Carolina Park Elementary. It would just be the Charleston National Neighborhoods and Stratton by the Sound, and then the Faison Road part. Okay, so if BJ, you think, just knowing that if I email you whatever, what we're saying is to include 1, 4, and then Stratton by the Sound in a way, looking at a map that makes sense, that you could get that by Friday. Is that possible?
Yeah, I can get it to you tomorrow. tomorrow early, just so you guys can do that. Just to reiterate, you're requesting area 1 as is and area 4. And then another option, area 1 plus Stratton by the Sound to include area 4.
Okay, that actually makes more sense. Yeah, I mean, we might
Okay.
as well, because even though we have pieced together on what we have ourselves about just 1 and 4, we need to have it visible. And so that, I think that's a great idea to have option 3 that just shows area 1, area 4, and then option 4 that shows that exact same map, but add in Stratton by the Sound.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be able to get it to you tomorrow early so you can give me feedback and if I need to adjust anything.
And then that way Friday it goes out in our packets. It can go up online, and I'll ask Stephanie, Mr. Baroe, and Ms. Seltzer if that y'all see any problems with that timeline as far as getting that map, up on the website so it's visible. That's something we're going to look at, and is next Wednesday going to work for CCSD to have another meeting, special call meeting at 6 o'clock.
We're here to serve.
I know y'all are busy, and I know y'all are trying to get our students to figure out how they're going to get to school. But that would be June 24th. Is that? And since this is such an important meeting, I do feel that it needs to be at 6 because I don't like meeting at 6 because it's a difficult time. And Kristen, I know it is for you with those little girls, but I think to do it at a different time for such an important meeting.
I mean, I appreciate that, but these kids are always here, so it really doesn't make a difference. At night, I can pop on a movie. It's fine.
How is it, every board members, the rest of you, could y'all make the 6 o'clock, June 24th?
Yes.
Yes.
Meeting to look at these 2 new options. And I think we're getting close. BJ and Jeff or Angela, whoever thinks they want to, I forgot to do this for this meeting, but really when we have these options before, we've done written description to go with it, because I can remember with the multi one, it's like, well, map C, what does that mean? To have exactly what that area is. Jeff, do you remember that? Like, we usually have something, a description like this area is, north of this spot, and
So either you or BJ wrote that.
I did.
yeah, we drafted it. We worked on that for a while. So it's really hard with some of this. I mean, when you have Highway 17 and it's, it's either the east or west, but when what we're talking about, we're really going through cutting in between neighborhoods and stuff. So it's going to be, it's easy to describe the Faison Road, south of Faison Road, and, easy.
Yeah.
West
So
of
Sarah,
17.
Sarah, I'll
Hard.
draft up a narrative to go with every map. I was
That's
hoping
hard.
we were hoping that this wouldn't be like a Moultrie or Lucy Beckham, but that by adding those descriptive narratives, we can do that. If that helps, we'll make it happen.
And I mean, I don't even know that it's how necessary it is or why. I think the important part is to convey what it is, even if it says, this area contains the neighborhoods of Charleston National and Stratton by the Sound, and it's easier to describe the Faison Road, but I think a narrative would help. Okay. And Jeff, if you, this is a more conservative approach. I mean, just to throw it out there, and I mean, you can talk about it next week if you want to give us some information now on any pitfalls. That this would be more like, I don't know, 200 students, maybe somewhere between 150 and 200.
The only pitfall I would say there are 2 pitfalls. One is if indeed Carolina Park fills up faster than changes can be made and you have to rezone again, moving more kids out of Carolina Park, that's a pitfall. If you're going to move less kids over to Laurel Hill and Pinckney, we run the risk of having to do this again for one of these neighborhoods that's not going to move. The second thing is if there's still a significant vacancy rate at those other 2 schools and the growth does not happen as significant as a lot of people say it will in Carolina Park, there is a risk of not getting the addition significant space in Laurel Hill and Pinckney. So it's a fine line, and there's no exact number I can give you.
So either way, we could make a mistake, is what you're saying.
I'm just saying, it's not a mistake. It's just there's, because there is, and this just demonstrates how much uncertainty there is
Right.
when it comes to putting kids in a zone and moving kids around. But that's the trade-off, the two trade-offs that could go with that.
And Sarah, just to add to that too, I just kind of want to let you guys know about Laurel Hill and Pinckney's growth. So in looking at their growth for elementary school, for developments that are literally permitted, and even for future developments that are permitted by the town, you're only looking at a yield rate of elementary schools for 41 students. For future, you're looking at an additional 10. That's all that's slated that is currently in that area to be developed.
Yeah, and that's good to know. And so that's one reason I feel good about adding that new area, Stratton by the Sound, in, because we know that's developing. And then also we do know that middle section, and Trey was here, we'd be talking about getting more. No, we're not going to rezone kids from Mount Pleasant Academy up this way, but we do have overcrowding at that school, and it's going to push forward. So but yeah, we need to take what Ms. Barnett said into consideration. We don't want to leave Park West schools empty, but at the same time, we want to plan for the future, not continually piecemealing and picking kids out. But I think this will be great if we can look at these two. Now, we were going to discuss grandfathering options, which typically is the rising fifth graders. Do y'all want to hold off on that until next week as well? We can put that there. Any strong feeling one way or the other on discussing grandfathering options? It is possible to make the decision.
Would it be different
now.
than normal grandfathering of rising fifth graders?
Fifth graders, yeah.
What were you saying, Kristen?
Would it be any different than what we normally do, which is just the rising fifth graders are an automatic?
That would be standard. So we would just have to confirm that, and board members had any other, if it was some kind of crazy situation where it was rezoning for this school year and there was no space and it was extreme. We've talked about extreme things like capping enrollment. I don't feel that way. I think fifth graders should be, especially these fifth graders, because these fifth graders were rezoned. They were at kindergarten at Park West schools, and they were rezoned to Carolina Park Elementary. So to me, that avoids rezoning the same student twice. It's the right way to say. But it's board member might have other ideas. I don't know who else you would grandfather in, because we're in this situation. It's so extreme with the overcrowding.
I'm just curious because a couple of people have brought it up in emails and stuff. The you're going to be the first grade to graduate. Those kids will be they'll be rising fourth graders.
Right.
I don't know if that's maybe something that we can do or want to think about, or if I'm just adding more.
Well, yeah, it could be part of the discussion. I want, we've done that. We've rezoned recently, Sea Farm, and we did not, it was only fifth graders, and there's the history of that is a precedent, and those students weren't rezoned. They weren't, the kindergartners were rezoned, the ones younger. They might have been in PD there, but yeah, it's part of the discussion. I think we should discuss it next time once we know, because if we're going conservative or we're going all out 290, that might influence someone's decision on whether or not to grandfather in certain ways. So we'll put it to next time unless anyone feels like they really want to get it out of their system tonight.
No, I'm fine with next week.
All right.
I am too.
We'll move that.
Sarah,
Yes,
could I
ma'am.
just bring up something?
Sure.
I think it would go right along with grandfathering, and that would be transfers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't need any transfers.
Well, yeah, we don't need any transfers into Carolina Park Elementary, but I do think, and we can finalize this next week, but I do think
Okay.
it's worth our board saying, making a statement during our meeting, if we decide to do this, and getting this information to Mr. Antonelli, that we will hear transfers out of Carolina Park Elementary into Park West schools for this coming school year because of the overcrowding. Normally we would not.
Yeah.
That isn't a reason for a student that's not finishing out, to transfer. But I think this board would be willing to hear transfers, especially for a kindergartner. They want to go ahead and start early. And we did that with the Sea Farm kids, the ones that wanted to start early at James C. Edwards. So that, and Marty, you agree that kind of transfer, I mean, I don't think we can create a rule about it because it's such a, I mean, we're talking K through 5 or,
We tried.
Well, that just would be messy. But I think to get the word out that, if parents want to fill out, if we will consider student transfers out of Carolina Park Elementary into Park West this coming school year for the ones that want to go ahead and start. It makes sense.
Mhm.
But
I have a question.
Yes.
If we are trying to get this timeline done so we can actually give people a jump start on transfers before the transfer window closes, I mean, I realize there's no hard and fast rule, and we can't promise anyone that they'll get transferred. But my feeling is that, if they're doing us a favor and saying we'll transfer this year, that it needs to be considered a hardship.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I don't think we can change our transfer process, but I think I can speak for myself that I would be willing to approve transfers, whether it's direct placement or not, for this very situation. But unfortunately, we can't do much about. We're getting close to when school starts. I mean, in our decision, I mean, hope we wanted to make it tonight, but if we make it next week, it's still. There's still, well, there's 3 weeks till the transfer window closes. And yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a discussion next week or even.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that person applying could basically call that their hardship, which is that they don't want to transfer. I mean, it is basically doing us and CPE a favor, really, to help lower those numbers earlier. So.
Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt to let people know, yes, we're accepting student transfers for that reason. I just don't think we can pre-approve it because it's an entire school, and we really need to have record of and I mean, you never know. They all make, we have to follow, I think, the process. Grandfathering rising 5th graders is different. It's a smaller group, it's select, they're still gonna have to do paperwork at the school level. But yeah, and just if anyone's listening, make sure everyone knows transfer students do not receive transportation. So it is, I mean, ideally, students go to the school they're zoned for. But yeah, I do think we should show that we're, yes, we will hear that as a hardship, or we'll hear that as a reason. But that is something that's going to have with the notification, and we'll discuss that next time too. It's going to have to be a fast turnaround, and it's not going to come directly from us. We don't have, it's going to have to go through CPSD and to the principal, to their own students about the new line, what the grandfathering is, and this maybe and we can draft it, that what we want to share with principals. But we'll work out the best way to do that. That's actually on the agenda for tonight, is approval of notification format. Because all the decisions we make next week, the new line, the grandfathering options, and then maybe a statement about student transfers for next week. That, and Carolyn and Jeff, if y'all want to help it, it hasn't been perfect in the past. I mean, we've done, there's different ways, the press release idea was thrown this once. I don't know that is appropriate for a board to do a press release, because we want the communication to go to families. And so with the Moultrie, it didn't go out. right after, and so this board needs to be extremely clear exactly what, you know, somehow in writing, this is the information, attendance lines, the grandfathering, and this transfer, you know, somehow. So we can all put our heads together for next time on the best way to get that communicated in a fast way if this decision is made next Wednesday. All right, so that puts.
Sarah, can I just,
Yeah.
I just had a thought because I know a lot of people unfortunately ignore some of their CCSD emails because they can be a lot of them sometimes. Can we have, when we make the announcement or the notification, can it come directly from the principals of the two schools?
Well, we can
Or not? I just feel like that gets noticed more or maybe read more than something from CCSD.
Yeah, I think we need to perfect it. And Jeff, I don't know if you remember how, say the high school rezoning, how was that, and maybe the Moultrie rezoning is a better idea, but how did that notification go out? Was it a email? I don't think there was a robocall. I don't know. How did families know that suddenly you're going to a different school next year?
Yeah.
Remember?
I don't remember.
Well, we can, I think in the next week, we'll look back. I do remember for the Moultrie rezoning, I think we did it in a way that we need to improve upon, which was eventually, after it didn't go out, then a letter went from our board directly to the principals. I don't think that's how we operate. I think our board makes decisions, whether it's an expulsion case or a transfer, and then 250 does a notification, because I think it's cleaner. Because what happened is the information went directly to the principals, and the principals started asking me questions, and which I'm happy to answer questions. But I feel like that is we made a decision on behalf of what will happen in the schools, and then the details need to be worked out with the central staff, or whether it's the learning director. But Jeff and Carolyn, if you don't mind, maybe we'll put our heads together for the what CCSD think is the best way to get this information to the principal so they can share with their families. But I hear you, Kristen. Yeah, we want to make sure everyone gets it, not just the people who happen to listen to this meeting and they get advance notice, which is what kind of happened with Moultrie. We need to make sure all families affected have this information as clearly, and put it everywhere we can, I guess. I mean, we'll certainly have it on our website, but we'll figure something out for next. So we'll have that next week to perfect the.
Sure. We'll check with the communications department to get some of our options and come back to you. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, we do have a transfer application to consider, and we have that next on our list. But actually, the board reports. Marty, I know you had a board report that you wanted to share. Do you want to?
You want me to do that now? Go ahead and do that.
Well, let me ask it with district reports. Jeff, do y'all have anything that are y'all going to be presenting in district reports tonight?
I have a couple comments I'd like to pass along.
Okay.
Because I mean, once we go into executive session for this transfer, I think that we might lose, anyone who's viewing, and they don't really, probably not too interested in our calendar. So let's skip to board reports. And Marty, I'm going to let you go first. Marty's got some information about re-election process.
Okay. All right. Well, what I found out is August the 17th. It's normally August the 15th, and you all will want to know this, even though you're not running again. But this information you'll be asked. August the 17th, because the 15th is on a weekend, is the deadline to register at noon, and their hours are 8:30 to 5 o'clock. And this is the election commission down on Headquarters Road. Now, the what the fellow over it said to me is they would like people not to come in there. But if you come, anyone comes, they will certainly help them get an application. You can do it online. Like I can register online. They then send an email that says they have received that, and you will be on the what am I trying to say? Where you vote ballot. So I'll give you this information if you want it, so that you could give it to whomever may ask you for it. You want it? Do you all want it? Are y'all hearing me?
Yes, sir. I was muted myself, I think. Is that, do you have
Okay.
that? You can email it to us, or you want to use that?
I can email it. And
Make sure
I'll try to, do
And
what?
Trey, and make Trey, just so everyone knows that the terms that are up are yours and Trey's and mine.
Right. And so, but I'll do that. I'll be glad to email that to y'all, because he gave me that information, and that's important. You don't have to go down there, which is kind of a pain anyway. And I wanted to tell you all that I'm going to retire. I am not going to seek re-election.
Now, how many years have you done?
I have given 27 years
Wow.
to Charleston County School District, Constituent Board District 2.
That's the
And-
same age as Trey.
Do what now?
I said
What?
that's the same age as Trey.
Oh, is that ages, Trey? Yeah. Oh, well, I just wanted to let you all know this is not something that was decided in the spur of the moment. I don't do well with spur of the moment anyway. I'm a planner, and I think I'm a thinker, and I've thought about this in all kinds of ways, and of course discussed it with my husband, who is absolutely ecstatic. He is so happy. So anyway, I just wanted to let you all know that.
Well, we will miss you, Marty.
Well, thank you. I
I
appreciate
feel
that.
like the district owes you a pension, Ms. Beth, with that much time in.
I know it. Hey, come on. I don't want to go watch. I already have a go watch, Carolyn. Pension would be great. You have a good idea there.
We're going to be the school district is going to be renaming the Center for Advanced Study at Wando. I said, Marty, you can't name after living people, because you definitely.
Well, I'm definitely living. I thank God every morning that I wake up, So I don't know what I'm going to do. The first part, of course, I'm still coming to the meeting. I'm still going to be very active until November comes. But I'll be looking at my watch or my phone, and oh my gosh, what time is the meeting tonight? But, I won't miss looking at all the cases, the discipline. I really won't miss that, because I took all that so personally and so hard, that, and it'd be nice if I had kept count of how many cases I've heard in 27 years. And of course, all the changes that have gone on. And Jeff, you've only been here 6 years, so you've had 6 years of grief from me. I know, and you're going to be so happy not to hear me anymore. But I'll miss you anyway.
I'm going to miss you too, Marty.
Well, thank you. You still see me in the paper, okay?
I think your compadres will pick up the slack, though.
Oh yeah. I'm going to try to find somebody for Isle of Palms. I really am. And I don't know who had, y'all, no one else knows this. I wanted to extend the courtesy. I did talk to Sarah earlier today when I had time, and to let her know first because she's chairperson, and then you all now know, so no one else knows this except John. So anyway, got a secret there.
And all 6 people watching on YouTube.
So is there 6 people?
Oh, that's right. We are on YouTube, aren't we? I thought we were in executive session. Oh, well, find somebody for the Isle of Palm seat.
Proper send off, because you have been this board just as for almost for just, is it really 27 years? That's an odd
Yeah.
number. Okay.
Yeah, 93. Somebody got mad and walked off. And then I got recruited, but several other people did as well. But I got voted in for the rest of that year, 93. And then from then on, it's been 94, every 4 years. I've been on the presidential ballot
That's right.
every time. The first time I sent it to everybody I knew in my hometown, Rock Hill. Marty Pressler Belk is on the presidential ballot. I even have that saved. I'm trying to think, was that Bush? No, who was that? Clinton? I don't know. I don't know my history. I know my science. I don't know my history. But anyway.
Well, we will work on a proper send off, and hopefully it'll be in person. And just, my term is also up. I am not planning on running for re-election. And the other seat is Trey, the Sullivan's Island seat. So Pamela and Kristen, I don't know.
We'll see your numbers.
We need some company.
So the 3 hardest seats to fill, because Sullivan's Island is population-wise very small, and I don't know yet for sure about Trey, if he's running or not. And Marty, same with Isle of Palm. Compared to the Mount Pleasant seat and the at-large seat, it's tens of thousands different. My seat is even weirder, which is if you're not in Mount Pleasant and you're not on Isle of Palm or Sullivan's Island, it's everywhere else in District 2. So that's part of Allendale, and then lots of donut holes of unincorporated areas. But it's so. If anyone's listening, anyone's interested, you have till August 17th to file.
Right.
And just, I did mention that the school district and the county board will rename Wando Center for Advanced Studies, and just going to touch briefly on that because Marty and I were part of that naming committee. Was that just yesterday, Marty?
Yeah.
And so it's, the Center for Advanced Study is located on Wando campus. It's the Wando building. And then my daughter who went, graduated last year, as far as we were concerned, it was part of Wando. Well, it's not. It's the Center for Advanced Study. It's going to be for Beckham, and it's for District 1 students as well. So it was important to come up with a name that conveys that it's not Wando's Center for Advanced Study. So anyway, that decision has not been made, and I think the committee will meet again. But just so you know, Marty and I both recommended the East Cooper Center for Advanced Study because policy recommends that it's just a geographical kind of descriptive, and the point is to be inclusive to the whole area. But there were some other neat ideas: Copahy, Sweetgrass, Bayside, and then someone suggested naming it after a person, which I think you only can't name it against a living person. But he was thinking maybe an African American engineer, and I think he threw a name out. But those ideas are still coming in. But we'll keep you updated, and board members, if you have any suggestions.
Yeah.
Marty and I know to carry that forward. The same with Constituent, a name that suits that. All right. Any other board reports? Any announcements from board members before we get to the district report? Okay, good to know. We still have Pamela and Kristen on the board. Y'all have 2 more years to go.
Nothing further.
So, Jeff, I think I'll let you start with a district report.
So let me offer to Angela and BJ, you're welcome to depart the scene. You've put in a lot of time and effort here. Carolyn, you must stay.
All right. Thanks all.
I
Thank you,
can't-
BJ. Thank you, Angela.
Thank
I
y'all.
can't-
Bye-bye.
I can't top Marty's announcement. Unfortunately, you guys still have both Carolyn and I around. So two things just to pass along. One is the transfer, where we stand on transfers. An announcement will come out next week showing all of the transfers that were appealed to the county board and sent to the constituent, all of the constituent boards. But I did want to give you a preview of that, since there is some direct effect, and you always knew there's a lot of transfers related to Mount Pleasant. So there were 28 appeals made to the county board. 2 were upheld, 5 were direct placed, and 21 were overturned. Of those 21 that were overturned, all 17 that applied for Beckham were accepted or put into Beckham as part of that process. As far as numbers go, and the rationale, I'll just give you a little bit on the rationale. The rationale is the enrollment projections right now based on registration are below 750. In fact, well, we were targeting 375 for each class. There's less than 300 kids for 10th grade. So a lot of that was Wando transfers that were unexpected. There were, I don't have the number here in front of me, but I think there were 48 students zoned for Beckham that went to Wando. So there was a significant number of students that went the other direction that that wasn't anticipated to be that high. I will say that on the other side of the coin, there were less kids that went to school choice than we expected. You know, we had you guys projected, and I believe it was an 85% live and attend in, which meant that 70 kids or so in the Beckham zone would apply to go to school somewhere else. There were a lot less students that applied for School of the Arts and Academic Magnet than were expected. So there was discussion with the principals. Both felt that they could handle transfers in both directions. And the county board is aware of being able to handle what will happen if during this next transfer phase there's a significant number. They might have to make a harder decision going into that. The rest of the schools were very, very small. Like I said, Beckham was 17 of those 26. The rest were a few here and a few there. And none were accepted or overturned into Carolina Park. The second thing I wanted to pass along was just to give you a very brief update on where we stand with back to school and the process that is underway at this point. First off, there are a number of teams that are working to develop the way ahead, and all those working groups will continue to feed information to each other and work their way up to a central task force, which is part of CCSD Safe Restart. Carolyn has had her academic folks really doing double time to develop alternative scenarios. If we can't bring all the kids back, there's been a lot of effort looking at different ways to handle educating students if we can't fully populate them. I will say that overarching guidance is we want as many kids back in our school as long as we can get them back in safely as possible. And so that is the number one priority. Again, the alternatives being developed by learning services are if we can't get all the kids back, and or if students want to choose to stay virtual. If they don't want to come back, how can they still stay with CCSD and be educated accordingly? On the logistics side, we're taking a look at everything from cleaning protocols to busing to space in the classrooms to nutrition services, nursing services. Everything is being looked at. We're constantly reviewing guidance being provided from above. You all probably have heard of Accelerate Ed, which was a working group put together from across the entire state. They've got draft recommendations out this point, and they've been lockstep with DHEC in developing those recommendations. And we're going to make sure we obviously stay within those guidelines. And so far, they're providing a good framework for us to stay in. A lot of the recommendations they're making so far will allow us some capability to make decisions and not restrict us, and allow districts to make decisions based on their size and ability to get kids to school. Obviously, the number of kids in class and getting kids to school are the two toughest hills to climb. There'll be some schools in the district that will easily be able to have all the kids back. And there will be some that are extremely hard, if indeed possible, with those two restrictions, class size or classrooms and busing. So the timeline for moving ahead is that we really want to have an announcement made pretty close to a month before school starts. That's the general target, so that parents can begin to plan accordingly. And right now, we hope that we will be able to start K through 8 1 week early, essentially using that time frame as an ability to play some catch up to get prepared for get kids prepared for the next school year. That has not been funded by the state yet, but indications are that they will fund that. So we're planning for that scenario if we come back a week early for K through 8. The last thing related to the studies go is each of our principals is taking a look at their own facility. No facility is exactly the same, and principals may have ideas on how better to use some of their space to get more kids into the school safely. And so we've given them the template, a round number of what we think the capacity is in the COVID environment as dictated as of today from DHEC and other entities. But the schools will be looking at each of the locations separately, and then getting back with the logistics side, the operation side, to work those back and forth to get to a number, again, all under the superintendent's philosophy and approach of we want to get as many children back in school as under safe conditions. And that's what we're trying to do. So Carolyn, anything you wanted to add to that? I didn't want to go into too much detail, but I wanted to give them an idea of where we are and where we're going.
I don't think so, unless there are questions from the group that I can answer.
I just have a quick question. Are you saying that you're still going to wait a month out before announcing the date going back to school, or will that maybe be announced before?
We're going to go to the board, the countywide board, for this Monday's board meeting to ask permission to start 5 days early for K-8 if the legislation is approved for the additional 5 days of service for teachers. So we're waiting on the state legislation to approve that budget. Once that's approved, then we'll announce the revised calendar. If that's not approved, obviously we'll revert back to our current calendar.
But high school will stay on the same calendar as it was.
High school, we did do a calendar for starting early to see if that was an option, and we're running that by the high school principals. My suspicion is that we're not going to recommend that to the board. So we did the exploration between the two. The advantage of doing that would be that second semester could end before the Christmas holidays. The disadvantage is it cuts it very close in terms of instructional days. And if we had weather or any closure, we don't have a lot of flexibility, and it does obviously also cut into work commitments that some high school students have. But we want to make sure we get input from the high school principals before we make a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could add real quick, I just wanted to throw out there, and I'm sure you've heard some of this, is that there are a number of other things happening in the district too that we're trying to create the best possible setting for those that are leaving school and those in the greatest need. And number one is that's the diploma award ceremonies that we're about halfway through now and have been highly successful. Each principal had the autonomy to set up with their community the best possible scenario to maximize safety and recognize our seniors who have gone through so much. And again, we're about halfway through those, and it's been nothing but positive feedback. And we've been able to maintain the social distancing that's required and is the biggest concern in a gathering of that size. So we're expected by the last one, I believe, is the 3rd of July, and that's Garrett Academy. Wando is just before that. So we'll be finishing up those, and then we're also running a small in-house summer semester, a larger virtual semester. Carolyn's running that show to try to target our most needy kids that we really want to help not fall farther behind their peers and try to get them jump started for the fall. And it'll also allow us to bring small numbers of kids into school in a safe manner and test out protocols as far as can you replicate this at a larger scale. And so there'll be some of the higher need schools that'll have kids there. And I will also say that from a Mount Pleasant perspective, there are, I believe, I think 3 schools in Mount Pleasant that they'll run full day kaleidoscope camps at for the month of July, 4 weeks in July, the 6th through the 31st of July. And so that announcement will be coming soon too. All of the safety protocols will be in place for that. Kaleidoscope, who is running that show, has been running the daycare at Meminger since March 31st for the Roper St. Francis healthcare workers. So they've got a great skill set and foundation built on how to bring kids in safely and operate safely, and that'll allow some of our kids to get out and do some things that have a learning framework with it.
I have a question, Jeff. That all sounds awesome. That sounds great. I think at the beginning you talked about some schools might be able to go back, like all the kids at once. Maybe they don't have as many kids. And I tried. I'm thinking that's not. We don't see a lot in D2, but it makes me think of Beckham is going to be it's a big building with fewer students. But whether it's Beckham or any other school, if you still have to have smaller class size, how you would have to have extra teachers. So how is I've heard this other people say this. So how are any of our schools in D2 or anywhere in PTSD actually going to go back all the kids all the time if class size has to be smaller and we don't have enough teachers to space out, even if you have the physical space? We all figured out.
So I think there are 2 things that can be done and are being studied that can accommodate that. One is if students decide to stay virtual, that drops the class load down to some extent. The second thing is we're looking at social distancing mechanisms in classrooms, meaning plexiglass or Lexan acrylic dividers between desks so that kids can sit closer than 6 foot from each other. So the class size would be larger than what you might expect or may have heard in the news. And so it would be a lot closer to a lot of the class sizes we see around the district, including Mount Pleasant. For Beckham, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've got a school that essentially we could spread kids out, but you're faced with the point you just said. Do you have a teacher's assistant or another teacher in the other classroom that you don't have students, or that you have students, but you have to split that class up? That's something that Carolyn's team will certainly look at. And then we would also, quite frankly, want to look at, are we better served using part of Beckham for one of the other schools in that area rather than having it for high school? Are we better served having some of JB Edwards or Bell Hall there so that all those kids could go back? Because the K through 5, K through 3, the younger kids are the ones that were much more concerned about getting back in school. They're less likely to stay on the mark with virtual than the older kids are. So all of that's being looked at.
Wow.
Well, I applaud all of you working on that, because we're making some tough decisions on rezoning, but to get kids back to school this fall is just, I know it's a big job, and so I appreciate what y'all are doing to work it out.
I don't envy that. I would love if we could, I mean, obviously selfishly, because my kids are at Bell Hall, but for our district, I think both those schools that are closest to Beckham also have a lot of our more at-risk students too. So I would love if that's something that can be considered.
I mean, I think it's a credit to the principals that they're being as creative as possible. And I think the real goal here, again, is to get as many kids in the building as we possibly can safely. And we're supposed to find out where principals are on this next week, which gives us a chance to say, okay, where do we have challenges? And are there ways in which we can also seek out community partners who might be able to help in terms of additional space? Some of the churches have come forward with a willingness to have kids in some form in the building. So there are a few things we need to explore on the logistics side, and then obviously on the academic side to make sure that it's cohesive between virtual and face-to-face.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm very confident that District 2 principals are going to knock this out of the park. I've only personally talked to 2 of them about their plans so far, and the 2 that I've talked to have, I mean, they haven't shown learning service yet. They gave me the sneak preview so that I could help provide some thoughts on it, and they're locked on. I mean, they're tracking. I was pleasantly surprised. Not that it was unexpected by any means, because we've got some great principals here, and they want to get the kids back in school in a safe manner too. So.
Sounds good. We'll just keep listening, because I know it keeps changing. The situation keeps changing. I am going to make a statement about the transfers. I know Marty will back me on this, but I think, Chair, I just need to say this. I'm not looking for an argument, but I do want Pamela and Kristen going forward with the board to know that this is very disappointing to have all these transfer request decisions overturned. And the reason why is because our board is in charge of that, and the county board can overturn us if there's a flaw. If we discriminated, if we let in all these kids with siblings and not this one. And so it is problematic that they actually took on making a decision for us instead of following an appeal rule to find a flaw with our ruling, which we were very consistent with Beckham, and we were very upfront, and we did have families threatening to sue. We have very disappointed families on the island who now see that other people kind of got in this route that is not, it's a flaw of our structure, and it's, frankly, why I'm not continuing with this board, because it is a flaw that has to be addressed from higher up, that it is supportive. And so I just do make that statement and encourage Pamela and Kristen to work with a relationship with the county board that acknowledges those roles, and that it's not, there were reasons, and I conveyed it to the county board, the reasons why Beckham was rezoned the way it was, and that we do this, and there's a reason. And look, as we're rezoning Carolina Park and Mount Pleasant Academy next, there's a reason. It's our job. It's what we do. If we made a mistake in not treating cases equally, that's when they overturn it. And so it is disappointing, but it is what it is, because there's no remedy for us except for the public to understand why we did what we felt was right. And if the county board is going to direct place students into our schools, we did the best we could. And so but we can always point back to that. That's where those extra kids came from. Anyway.
You're exactly right, Sarah. Yes, ma'am.
It is. So let me see. Now I know I skipped over something. We do need to quickly approve the regular meeting schedule. And Steph, I don't know if you're able to pull that up. Basically, starting in July, we're in a new school year, and we meet the third Wednesday of the month. We meet at 6, then Zoom recently. Of course, we have special called meetings as needed. So my recommendation, even though you're going to be losing a couple people, and in November when there's a new board, you may need to relook at what night works the best for everyone. But does anyone have any change in circumstances where Wednesday night is not going to work going forward? Did y'all all get a copy of that schedule?
I just had a quick question. For July, it was the 4th Wednesday. I don't know if it was done because of the transfers, or I didn't know why it was the 4th Wednesday.
It was, and I mean, I just kind of threw that in there sort of as a draft, but the transfer window closes the 3rd Wednesday, which is, July 15th. And so we wouldn't be able, I don't think it makes sense to then and then meet a week later. So I just picked the very next Wednesday, which is the 22nd. Yeah, there it is. So, and I know there's a timeline for our decisions to get in and for notification and appeals and all that. I think that's the best we can do is the 22nd. But Stephanie, as far as you know, or anyone else, if we decide these on the 22nd, does that give CCSD enough time for notifications and the appeal timeline before school starts? And then we're talking about school starting earlier, so it's going to be tight.
It would probably not give ample time for an appeal and a ruling by the board, especially if we start school on August 8th
Right.
for K through 8.
I mean, I don't know that there's any
August
other.
the 8th is Saturday. Did you say August the 8th?
I meant August, I'm sorry, August 11th.
Oh, okay, that's a
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday.
August 18th is the start of school. We moved it, we're looking at moving it up a week for K through 8, August 11th.
Okay, all right.
So I think, I'm not sure, I mean, the county board usually meets the 2nd and 4th. I don't know if they're meeting the 20, let's see, what would that be? The 27th. And then they would meet next August 10th.
There's-
Yeah, that gets, but that, there's no way,
We
I
give
don't think
2 weeks for appeals.
yeah, I don't think, I mean, we can't back it up because the window goes to July
Yep.
15th. So
Yeah.
I wonder if notifications can go out anyway, and then those appeals, those would be, they need to go out as soon as possible, especially if school's starting early.
I mean, I kind of process them as they come in. You just wouldn't have to, I wouldn't be able to probably do the notebooks like before, but I mean, we could discuss them on the 16th.
What will that, okay.
That's a Thursday.
That gives enough time, does it? What did you say?
Does it
Jeff?
still not give enough? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, does it? I mean, if we decide and then the notification that it didn't go out the next day, I don't think last time, so it, in 1, 2, I mean, I think you still, I don't know, I mean, I'm willing to meet, I mean, I'm actually gonna be out of town that week, July 22nd, but I can call in.
And I can double check with Mr. Olson about his timeline in light of, school possibly starting earlier and that sort of thing.
County
Yeah,
board meeting is on the 10th of August. The county board meeting is on August 10th.
and the school might start back the 11th, is that right?
Yes.
So it wouldn't really, us doing it earlier doesn't help, is that correct? Well, let's see. 1, 2.
I think if you kept, if the window closes on the 15th,
Right.
I know we're not given 2 weeks, but if your decision's on the 22nd and the parents get notified on the 23rd, at least verbally, or even if the letters can get to them, I don't know what Stephanie's timeline is, how fast she could get those letters out, but giving them to just before the 10th to get an appeal, and it's less than 2 weeks, but it's at least if they're paying attention and really interested in appealing, they can get it done in time.
Well, I mean, I personally am flexible either to meet the 16th, but that means CCSD has, I mean, that doesn't, I mean, that kind of,
On the Monday, the 20th, if you're out of town that week.
yeah, I mean, it's the same difference to me. So, I mean, if the 20th helps the process in any way, I can do that. I don't know about the other board members, if they'd be able to meet Monday, the 20th.
I can do either.
You're talking about, when are you out of town though? If we're gonna have a meeting on the 22nd as well, or no?
No,
No.
I mean, I'm out of town that whole week, but I can call in either the 20th or the 22nd. The 2 extra days, it could, the decision would be made, the notifications would go out that week, and that does give 1, 2,
That pretty much is the full 2 weeks then.
full 2
So-
weeks.
So not the 20, you don't want to do the 17th. You can't do the 17th.
I wouldn't do a
That's
Friday.
Friday. That's a Friday.
Oh, 16.
No, I think that's putting too much on everybody
Okay.
especially now that the word's out that, you can transfer into,
Right.
to schools easily. So, yeah, I mean, I think if everyone can do the 20th, I think that gives enough time for one C50 to get the information gathered and then get it to us. And we have no idea. It could be 10 and it could be 100. You know, it depends.
Well, why don't we plan on the 20th then?
Yes.
I think the 20th. So on this, what we're looking at that says July 22nd, we'll change that to the 20th. And then
Okay.
all the other days are the third Wednesday of the month. And I checked, at least for this year, none of them hit holidays.
Yeah, I tried to look at that too as I was populating that.
But of course, everything is pending as far as if C50 goes with any type of abbreviated fall schedule or, you know, whatever. But I think that, you know, going forward, we should put third Wednesday unless anyone has started something where they can't make Wednesdays. Are y'all good with this? With the one change?
August the 19th. September. Okay.
Y'all good?
So we're going to do 6 o'clock on the 20th, Sarah?
Yeah, I think since it's a regular meeting, to keep it at
Okay.
6.
All right, that's fine.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the schedule with the change of July to July 20th. I don't have it in front of me anymore, but that time is on there somewhere, right? The 6 o'clock.
It does say 6
Yes.
o'clock, yes.
Yeah, it says 6.
Is
Yeah.
there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now we can go into executive session. We have a quick transfer, a transfer request. So I think we're going to I'll make a motion that we,
Just to get-
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session to consider a transfer request for student privacy reasons. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So join your breakout room.
Okay, everyone's muted.
The host muted everyone. Stephanie, you gotta unmute.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
I'm unmuted.
All right.
Come on, Sarah, come up.
We're missing Sarah and Jeff.
Stephen, is it possible to check on Sarah and Jeff to see if there's a problem transferring back?
Just check on Sarah.
I bet she hit leave meeting.
Oh, no.
Oh no!
I hope not.
Well,
All
then she
meeting.
should-
I just
There
closed
she
it,
is.
so they should
Oh,
be.
wait.
They should be
Oh,
coming
they
back.
have to come back. Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I was about to tell Jeff just to tell Marty to close out for me because I couldn't hear that.
We're gonna become tech savvy one way or the other.
All right, so I think we're done. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
No, you
Second.
have to.
Wait,
you
we have to
gotta
vote.
Wait, no, we gotta vote on the
We
transfer.
gotta vote.
Sorry, I got confused. I make a motion that we approve the student transfer request tonight into Wanda. Was there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now that is concluded at 9:06. I make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So we're gonna get all of
Let's see,
the road.
Stephanie.
I really gotta go. Bye, thank you.
Hi, Krista.
Okay, your
Bye.
girls were great.
They were perfect.
They were really good. She didn't hear me, but anyway, they
Bye.
were really good.
Okay, good.
All right, bye y'all.